And we are going live. We are going live. Let's make sure that the audio is coming through nice, beautifully crisp and clear on the other end. Oh, it is fantastic. Hey, Hannah, Heaven, great to have you here. Hi, and I hope that you are doing well today. And everyone else who is here, say good morning, good day, good evening, wherever you are at. I hope that you are doing fantastically. Hey, ISO's here. Hello. Awesome. Say we are going to have a good time tonight. Wafi is here. Hi. And I also got Master Knight DH. Good evening. Great to have you guys here. And I hope that you are all doing well. Hey, we got Cat Raven. Hello. Great to have you here. I don't think I've seen Cat Raven on the stream before, so it's great having you here. Wafi says the Gaslight District was absolutely amazing. Yes, it was. We are going to have a lot to talk about on this live stream as well as in future videos because this one episode just delivered so much. And we're going to have to get the word out about this show because even though I know that it was viewed pretty decently, in fact, let me just double check on how the views are doing. So much about this show goes against what the YouTube algorithm absolutely loves. And as a result, I don't know just how well the Gaslight District is going to do in the long run, just based on what YouTube might try doing to it. So yeah, let's see here. Just a little over 3 hours in, and we are 3/4 of a way to 1 million views, which isn't bad. That's not bad at all. But when you compare it to how Murder Drones did, how the Amazing Digital Circus does, that is definitely a step down in terms of just engagement. Now then, I don't think that Glitch Productions is concerned, not at all. But it is something that I see YouTube trying to bury. And this show, just this first episode alone, oh boy, it's going to have people who absolutely love it, and I think we're going to start seeing some people cropping up who are going to be like, "I'm here to destroy this," and we'll get into why I feel that is once we start breaking down the episode proper. Isa says, indeed, I have a lot to say. And Hannah says, I was traumatized watching it. I did not expect these characters. Yeah, it was a lot. Isa says, more gas than expected, but I love it. For anyone who recalls the show OKKO, Let's Be Heroes, ooh, now you're cooking with gas. That oh, I see. More gore than I expected. I absolutely misread that. But yes, actually, I thought that it was about as much gore as one could expect for this. Dorcas Daydream says Deltarune footage. Yes, the Deltarune footage, because we will be talking about puzzle encounters this evening, and there's a lot of puzzles in Deltarune. Yeah, so there's a lot. There's a lot that we're going to be discussing tonight. This is going to be a full live stream, wall to wall, just everything. Tyler says the Gaslight District has one of the best pilots I've seen my entire life. It has, so I'll just say this already, and again, we're going to get more into the details here pretty soon, but this episode felt more like a movie than a show, and not just in the quality of the animation, but in how it was delivered. Like, I began getting very, very strong Quentin Tarantino vibes from this. And like, the moment I began seeing that, I was like, I had to just lean back in my chair and be like, I have no idea what to expect from this anymore. We are in for something big. Iconic is here. Hello there. Hope you're doing well, Iconic. Okay, so let me quickly show off to you guys. There's 2 different slideshows for tonight, and one of them to kind of help set up what we're going to be doing, as well as one of the main lessons, and then another for kind of our little tack on fun conversation. So there is a lot to talk about, a lot to go over. Hey, I'm Omega is here, and Commoncraft Brazil. Great to see you guys. Woohoo! And one of the things I need to get myself into the habit of doing, because you guys know that I'm not one to normally go around begging, like, please, please, give me your likes, your subs, and your shares. But for the sake of the Gaslight District, I am going to ask that that you guys. Let's see here. No, I want this one. There we go. I am going to ask that you guys do take the time, not just with this stream, but with any, but with like any good video or post about the Gaslight District that you see, please share it out with as many people as you can, because this is a show that definitely needs the strong word of mouth in order to get, I think, the reception that it really does need, in order for it to be properly judged at just how good the storytelling is, like how or I should say, not just how good, but how appealing it is to the masses. And this is definitely a show for those people who are looking for darker stories, more mature stories, and I think that this right here is indie animation showing that it can be appealing to that older audience without being kiddish at the same time. This is definitely reaching what Luke and Kevin said they wanted to do, where they're like, we appeal to 20-something-year-olds and early 30-year-olds. This is that kind of show, and I really want to see it actually get out there to that demographic, so that way that theory can be tested. Dark Sage Dream says, the color shadow puzzle in Queen's Basement is one of my favorites. If Half-Bred Chaos's theory is correct, it could foreshadow the arcs of several major characters. I find that really interesting. I don't know that theory, Dark Sage Dreams. I'll have to check it out. Isa says, this is going to be my Murder Drones phase all over again. I'm already hooked on the Gaslight District. It has that dark atmosphere that the Digital Circus doesn't, and I just get hooked easier on dark stories. I really enjoy the dark atmosphere. Yes. Iconic says, I can't say I was the biggest fan, unfortunately. And Iconic, your input right there is very, very important, because, again, I do believe that this is going to be one of those shows where we get to see like kind of a dividing, not necessarily of the Glitch Productions fan base, but between people who are like, hey, this is what indie animation does. This is who indie animation is for. This is a darker, more complex, graphic story, and its sense of humor, its action, its pacing are not things that are going to fit well for a fair number of people. And that's absolutely fine. And that's actually one of the reasons why I want the show to get out to more people, is because I want to see more people react to this. And when we begin getting that feedback and that dialogue, we can then start getting ready for like, okay, so this is why this doesn't work for certain people, and that's okay. And if people start getting really combative about it, then we can start putting it into practice. And this is how you deal with criticism properly. James Werner says, it was a little too fast-paced. I barely understood what happened in action scenes. And James Werner, that is absolutely a good bit of criticism. I had to watch some of the scenes twice over just to get what's happening. You are getting bombarded with a ton of stuff. This is a show that definitely relies on its visual storytelling in order to convey a lot of what's going on and a lot of what you need to know. This is like Gravity Falls in a way on steroids, and without the kid vibe of Gravity Falls. Now, Dark Stage Dream says it's called What the Four Shadows Foreshadow. All right, Dark Stage Dreams, thank you so much. Waffy says, I'm really happy Glitch is leaning into more darker, more mature shows. Do not say Murder Drones or The Amazing Digital Circus. Those may have mature themes, but they don't do that always. And Waffy, that is a great bit of differentiation right there. Thank you for posting that. Common Craft says, I liked it, but for me, it has two major issues. The pacing, and it's seeming to be shaping into yet another angels are evil type story. It could go that way, Comicraft Brazil. I don't actually know yet, especially because based on everything that's happening down in the city, it's kind of hard to say that Lost Paradise can really get worse than that. So we're going to get into a lot of that once we really shift gears and go full force into the show. Iconic says, I was just a bit put off by how constantly violent and dark things were. Made it hard to really care for most of the cast. And Iconic, that is, again, a fair bit of criticism. And that's kind of what the show, I think, is trying to get at. It's not just simply the vibe, but I think that that's also part of the message. TV count, sorry I'm late. I had to finish watching the pilot first. It was amazing. It's really good at building up. All right, well, TV count, it's great to have you here. We really haven't gotten very far into this live stream yet, so don't worry. So the fast pacing is some of what I really enjoy about Glitch Productions, the visual gags, the small hints and foreshadowing that you have to dig just a little bit to uncover. I really enjoy it. And speaking of uncovering stuff, there are a ton of codes hidden throughout this episode. One of the guys on our Discord, Ocean, has been spending now some hours trying to locate these codes and decipher them. And some of it is just fun little gag stuff, and some of it might end up being very important later on. Hannah says, I can't put it on horror more than that. Dorky's Agent's response, Common Craft, I never liked stories like that personally. Well, everyone's got their own taste. James says, Has Been Hotel really burnt out the public interest in Hell versus Heaven stories, although this 5,000 years into the future setting leaves room for creativity. And yes, I think that's one of the things that really lends itself to having a dynamic of heaven versus hell, which is that it goes so creative. It's so bizarre. It's so beyond the pale. And the whole like heaven versus hell, when we start dabbling a little bit more into what's going on, I think it's more of the hell that humanity has created, because even the heaven itself is just bad. It's all bad. It's all bad. And that's what the birth of a human is meant to bring an end to. And we don't yet know exactly what that all means, what that's supposed to look like, because there's so many secrets, so many lies, so much gaslighting, hence the name of the show. So I'm really interested in seeing where we go from there. Concrete says, my first thought upon finishing and seeing some discussions was that the overwhelming nature of the show is to hide what is happening in the background, aka gaslight us, but it may have an arg coming. One thing I wonder about hearing the ending narration is that Mel will sooner or later die and won't revive like the others. Yes, because she does not have the mark of the Black Hand. Hey, Arts is here. Great to have you here, Arts 1984. Okay, and Grecoy is here as well. Hi, so great to have you all here. So since we've already been talking a lot about this, let me just quickly show you guys what I have planned for this evening, and then we shall head on into it. So our main goals for tonight are, we're going to review the Gaslight Theater. Why is there Gaslight Theater? I'll tell you why there's Gaslight Theater, because in Tucson, there is this fantastic place called Gaslight Theater, which I highly recommend to anyone to go to. I don't know why I typed in theater, though. Gaslight Theater is a phenomenal place to go, but is very, very different from the Gaslight District. Then we're going to talk about how to create puzzle encounters, and then we are going to be talking about redeeming hated tropes, which almost won the poll for last week's lesson, which is why we are doing it for the writing lesson this week. All right. So with that being said, let's add on the footage for it, footage from the show. All right, let me take a drink of water and slow my tongue a little bit so I stop getting tongue-tied. All right, there we go. Okay, so my initial thoughts on this. My initial thoughts on the show is, this is if Quentin Tarantino directed an animated show. That is what the Gaslight District is. This thing is artsy-fartsy up the wazoo. It's got gangs, it's got lies, it's got violence, it's got betrayals. The only thing it doesn't have is a plethora of very R-rated words. But it has all of these things. And one of the elements to the show that I was not expecting and that immediately changed it for me was that we get chapters, and then we get 4 chapters in this episode. And I was thinking, oh, so we've got chapters, 3 chapters, 3 stages of a play, and then we got 4. And I was like, what is happening here? You are breaking all of these conventions. Like I said, it gets artsy-fartsy real quick. And this is a show that demands that if you want to understand anything of what is happening, you need to watch this multiple times. You need to be paying attention, because just like right there, as we come on up to view the city, so we already have codes. There's going to be tons of codes. There's even codes that come out as onomatopoeia in this episode. When Mud snipes snipes Jake, there's a bang, and the bang comes out as code. So it's all over the place. This is why one of the reasons why I said that it's kind of like Gravity Falls, but on steroids, because Gravity Falls is all about the mysteries, the lies, and the codes that you had to try to find in order to piece some things together, and that's what this show is already delivering to us in spades in the first episode. Conquest says, wait, code and onomatopoeia? Really? Yes. Yes, it happens. It happens at least once that I've been able to find so far. Iso says, I believe that the hand is the one who is gaslighting everyone. At the end of the pilot, there's a warning screen with an image of the black hand that says, prophetic threat alert. The human threat remains uncontained. All denizens are reminded that false sightings or malicious reports will be prosecuted as deliberate acts of terror against the Gaslight District. Offenders will be processed according to Protocol Omega-7. Your compliance is mandatory. Your cooperation is appreciated. Your fear is unnecessary. James says, personally, between all glitch shows I've seen, I'd rank them in order as Digital Circus, Murder Drones, Gaslight, then Meta Runners. Never saw Sunset. I still need to see Sunset and Meta Runners. Just gotta make the time to do it. Common Croft says, another that occurred to me was finishing based on what the Angel Mother said. Will future episodes have Mel struggling with the call of prophecy to end the district? Yeah. This episode dropped tons of hints of things. You're like, wait, what? Wait, what? Wait, what? Art says, where can you watch the show currently? It's on YouTube. Arts, you just gotta type in Gaslight District. Boom, you're going to see the episode right there. So yeah, again, lots of artsy-fartsy stuff. This is basically Gravity Falls cranked up to 11, just really dark. The details that we get about what's going on is so again, if we were to think, okay, this is heaven versus hell, it's all hell. What's left of Earth is just a floating city upon a flood that has submerged all of the Earth, all of humanity. What's left of humanity doesn't even look human because they have been twisted and distorted into these things that have become basically monsters of vice and of pleasure to the best of their ability, because without the fear of death, there are no consequences. And so what's interesting is this is a fascinating take on what would happen if you gave humans immortality, because most stories that delve into immortality show either humanity reaching great utopian heights, or it's a dystopia because they all start going more insane because they've lost a quality that makes them human, and it's just this slow march down to what have we done? Why would we ever do this to ourselves? But with this show, instead, it boldly is just like, nope. If you don't have the consequences of death, humanity just becomes this absolute, just monstrous carnival of just debauchery, and it doesn't even look good. Like in this, in this moment, let me actually pull this back a little bit, and I'll play some of the audio right here because it says decadence. What about any of this looks decadent to you?
Indulgence. A haunted.
All right, let's pull it back just a little bit further.
The black hand. The Rotlings, blissful in their lives of decadent indulgence.
Decadent and indulgent. What about any of this place is decadent or indulgent? It's just, this is what humanity becomes when it doesn't have to fear consequences. And that is what we see throughout this show, is just how, like, you can't even call these people human anymore, which is what makes Ken the Butcher easily the most interesting character in this entire series. Because of all the denizens, he is the one who has actually shown real humanity. Not even Mel, who is human other than her fright, shows humanity. But Ken is scared. And Ken has a certain set of morals, way more than we've seen from Mel or anyone else. He's a very complicated character in comparison to everyone else who's just so straightforward. They're ruled by their most base instincts because, again, there's nothing really to compel them to reorder their life in any kind of decent way. There's nothing about any of this that is okay. So, like, if we're coming back to, like, the whole, like, heaven versus hell type of a thing, like, hell is on earth. Earth is hell because of what humanity has become. and it's, yeah. Why would anyone want to be a part of this? Now then, an interesting thing. Let me pull this back a little bit. The opening sequence of shots makes no sense the first time watching it. Once you've watched this episode and you come back, you realize that everything that's happening in the opening shots is confirmation of conversations that happen later about the hunt for Jake, what they did to what Ken had done to the people in his butcher shop / diner / inner circle when they found out about Mel being human, and of Mel planning her break-in into Lost Paradise. All of that is represented in these opening shots, but we don't have the context. And so first-time viewers are left absolutely bewildered about what the heck is happening in this show. Like, none of these shots make any sense at first, but once you watch the first episode, it all starts coming together. All right, let's see here. Wife says, also, the animation is so good. Like, I can't believe it. Oh my gosh, the animation is insane. And it's one of the things, though, is that it flip-flops between kind of like that cheesy 3D and claymation feel. And it's really bizarre and unsettling, but it works for the show. The animation fits the vibe. It solidifies the atmosphere all on its own, and I like it. I like it in that regard. Is it my favorite animation? Nope, not even close. But the animation is perfect for the story. Commoncraft says, also, this reminds me of the theory by MatPat on the Amazing Digital Circus being hell. Hell is other people. Yes. Yes, indeed. Excuse me. Art says, it's insanity unleashed in all sorts of directions. There's no leash on them. They can be anything they want to be, but choose to indulge in the most negative intent. I like to imagine this is what a dark world within a dark world looks like. Yes, absolutely. Comcraft says, what if the inhabitants of the district are not all the remaining humanity, but rather only the ones that were turned to the Black Hand? That could be part of it. That could be part of the mystery that we just don't yet know. We're missing tons of context, which this episode is helping to build up how we're going to get that context. Also says, I really like the music. It was more sad, melancholic than I thought it would be. I expected dark and gloomy like in the trailer, but we only got like twice in this episode. Yeah, the music also complemented the series really well. Say kudos to the whole production team for everything that they put into this. Like this is clear. Like when Matt and Luke, when Luke and Kevin said that this was their most ambitious project so far. Yes, absolutely. Wafi says, also, you okay? You're coughing quite a lot, making me worried a little. Don't worry, Wafi. Don't worry, everyone. This is part of what I call the eternal cough. So once a year, I just get a really, really bad cough. Nothing contagious. It's not allergies. It's just a cough that rips up your throat. And because it rips up your throat, it makes it harder for you to just talk without coughing. It's just what happens. It's annoying. It goes on for at least a month each year, and then it's done, and it hits at different months. I thought I was going to get it back in January, because that's usually when I get it. Nope, I got it in March. I got it in the end of March, and here we are in April. Yay. But don't worry. I am doing fine. And you know what? Just to help make people feel a little bit better, I came prepared. I have got cough drops. So I'll even pop a little cough drop. You guys a little bit SMR. I'm doing the wrapper. There we go. All right. Now then, so coming back, so thank you, Wafi. I hope it all gets better for my sake as well soon. So I intend to do a far more thorough breakdown into what's happening in this episode for actual review. And hopefully it doesn't take me as long to do that review as it did to do the review for episode 4 of the Amazing Digital Circus. Crinkle, crinkle in 4K. So again, artsy fartsy. I love the look of a 4-way split screen right here, and you don't even see the characters as themselves. By blanking out their eyes and making them glow, this reduces them to just pure killers and monsters, which will then be juxtaposed by how we see them as people throughout the rest of this episode. With Breadhead being just a lovable idiot, Melancholy being being melancholy, being Sin. Sin has been, this is what happened with Sin. Sin got reincarnated as Melancholy. It's canon, folks. It's canon. Mud is an absolute monster, but in a way, but he's actually way more likable than I thought he would be. And then again, Ken is probably the most human of all the characters in the cast, which is crazy to say because he's so demented and messed up. But it's what motivates him that allows him to actually hold on to any semblance of humanity. The Smiling Dead. Local crime family. So yeah, this whole chase and everything, the way it gets set up, the way it's executed, again, incredibly artsy. I feel like Quentin Tarantino, someone needs to get this show into the hands of Quentin Tarantino, just so that way we can get his feedback, because he probably would have a lot of stuff to say. I think he would definitely have some criticisms about the pacing, for instance. He might also say, why don't you go even further if you're willing to get this gory and violent? But I feel like this is something that speaks to him on an artistic level. Breadhead, the muscle of the Smiling Dead, and also the puppy. Yep, that's pretty much him. And then you got Ken just looming there. Like, And I even missed how Ken is like a specter looming over everything. Again, it solidifies he's a threat. He is a monster, which again will be juxtaposed by us then seeing him as a caring dad. Ah, this is fun. Bread. Oh boy. Yeah, if he doesn't want Melancholy to get hurt, why sit her in the back seat with Breadhead? Okay, so I'm not going to go through every single little bit of the episode. Again, that will be for an actual full-on review. But talking then about like getting the getting that juxtaposition, which for as a word that I know, if I were to say that in front of my old high school students, they'd be like, "What's juxta what?" Juxtaposition is when you establish one thing and then you contradict it with another, but they coexist at the same time. It's not like we can also call it a contradiction or an oxymoron, but in the case of a juxtaposition, the contrast is meant to illustrate something. It's meant to illustrate the very real differences within the world, whether it be the real world or in a fictional world. And so the juxtaposition of the characters is meant to show that they can be brutal murderer mafia members, but that they can also be individuals that we can end up caring for and who have way more humanity to them than the rest of the surrounding inhabitants and city does. Omega says, because Breadhead is a good lad. He is a good lad. He's one of the bestest of lads. Someone should just get him out of the city and like get him to a university where he can play piano. I bet that he would be doing beautifully as a person. Isa says, I'm looking forward to the conflict of Mud and Bread finding out that Ken has played us all. Yes. Oh, yes. Oh, that's going to be so deliciously good. And the thing is that I can see each character taking it very differently. I can see Breadhead, because he's just so straightforward, reacting very negatively at first, but if Mel can convince him or someone can convince him not to kill her, then he'll do it. And then he'll be absolutely 100% on her side because he's just that straightforward. Mud is going to use this in some kind of way to his benefit. Because he's doing all kinds of little shady things here and there throughout this episode. Oh my gosh. There's just so much to say. But actually what I want to get to... let's hear it. Concar says, I wonder if Mel has any special powers or traits. She must have if the angels are waiting for her in order to swarm over the district rather than just doing it right now. And I agree. We're waiting to see if she does have any abilities. I would say one of the theories that I am going to chuck out the window now that I gave weeks ago was that she has the ability to control the crows and ravens. I think that we have to say, yeah, it's probably not going to happen, but it seems to be some sort of innate ability within her. Now, there is another thing that needs to be pointed out, and that is at the end of the episode, we are told that the people are ruled by fear of a myth. And myths are based in reality, but they're not necessarily true. And so, for instance, the truth can be that humans can be born again and that they are not under the power of the hand. But maybe the myth is that the human won't be the one to actually destroy the Gaslight District. It could very well be that the fear of death coming back to the remnants of twisted humanity, that fear is what propels them to start doing things that lead to their own destruction. Kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. And that would be an interesting twist. That would be really, really neat to see. I don't know if it's going to go that way, but then again, this is the first episode, and like I said earlier, we're missing loads of context. Oh man, love this moment right here as they get shot up, and they're still standing because of the cursed mark. And of course they are. That's such a great revive moment. Concraft says, if I remember right, legends are based on reality. Myths are wholly fictitious. Not quite. Both are based in reality to some means or another. Legends are what become myths. Or if you're going to go with the route of... actually, yeah, because if we go the route of Lord of the Rings, history became legend, legend became myth. Myths are based in things that we hold to be true or things that we know to be true, but they take it in a way more fictitious route than a legend does. A legend is based more in reality than a myth is, but they both rely on an understanding of reality in order to deliver the story and the meaning behind that story. Because otherwise, if it doesn't have anything real to it, then why should it speak to the people? And that's one of the reasons why people have begun to term modern literature and fiction as modern myth, because the stories speak in some kind of way to us on a level that is real, to our morality, to our way of thinking, to the application of stories, to how the characters reflect us in certain ways, rather than based in something like Hercules, which Hercules most likely didn't exist. And if he did, then Zeus, where are you? But that many of the places that Hercules went to are actual, indeed, historical sites, and we're only discovering more about them recently. As it says, I really hope that the baby Angel Crow at the end of the episode ends up being an ally, maybe seeing Mel as a mother figure. Oh, Mel is not yet ready to be a mother. But yeah, that is indeed a possibility. All right, so jumping on ahead right here to the juxtaposition. So we find it. So like I said, we get to see what the gang is like. So yeah, part 2, the whale belly butcher shop. This is one of the things I'm talking about, where it's all split up into parts. There's no, like, from what I've seen, there's no reason necessary to split them into parts other than to justify the time skips, which I kind of like. And again, it organizes the episode in an interesting way that takes you out of that feeling subconsciously of, I'm watching a cartoon, to almost more placing you into a cinematic feel. And I don't know if I would necessarily term that as a cheap trick or a really brilliant move. Comcraft says, wrote, I said it wrong. Myths don't have any proof remaining of what they were based on something real. At least that's what I thought it meant. No, myths have a basis in some kind of reality. It's a reality that's very far removed from us, but that we can find it. So, like, for instance, the story of the Minotaur is absolutely ridiculous, and yet very recent archaeology is finding all of this evidence to show how even the ancient Greeks came across ruins and people that suggested that there was some sort of weird underground maze, and that there could have been a bull man because of another culture, another society that was near them. And so we find an actual evidence to support the myth, though we know that there was no Minotaur running around. Now then, one of the things I like about this particular scene is how Mel is such a lovable idiot. Because right out loud, she is getting so close to flirting with revealing that she's human. And then right in front of all these people, she brings up the scheme that she has to go steal an egg, and she isn't even worried that her wrappings are coming loose and revealing very real black-blooded injuries. And so, oh no, the hyper realistic imagery. Gah. Oh, so disturbing. Thank you for the nightmares, Glitch. But again, this scene right here is just such a wonderful juxtaposition to everything that we saw in the first scene. Mel being a lovable idiot, just divulging way too much than she should. Brad just being a good boy. Good boy, playing his piano, getting drunk, being a good brother and son. Ken actually being a very cognizant dad. And what I mean by cognizant is that he's paying attention. He notices when her wrappings are coming loose and he like sticks them back. He's paying attention to what other people are saying around him, to what she is saying while running a business. This guy's processing a lot of stuff for a man whose brain has been split in half. And Mud is still a despicable con man and killer, but we come to realize through this exchange that he is not as what's the right word I'm looking for? Independent is not quite the right word. Rebellious is probably the better word. He's not as rebellious as he might come across in other scenes, that he is loyal to Ken. So much so, the guy is sleeping on a meat hook in the butcher shop. So he isn't exactly someone who's about to run off and begin a rival gang against Ken or stab Ken immediately in the back. There's some loyalty to him, and it creates this nice family aesthetic. As demented as it is, we understand this is a family. They actually genuinely care for each other, and that makes us want to root for them. Or at least some of us. Some people might be like, I can't connect with any of these characters. And if so, I understand why. Because they're incredibly demented, and this is an incredibly dark story. But for the people who are able to buy into the atmosphere and into the vibe, this is a scene that is meant to really get us to connect with them and be like, oh, this is a gang. This is not just a gang. This is a family. And as a family, I immediately want to root for them because I want them to succeed. I don't want my happy little family, my little found family of vicious criminals to get shattered. I can just already hear Dom Toretto be like, family. Yeah. These guys are good. Family. Sounds more like Batman right there. I cannot do Vin Diesel's gruff croaking voice like what he does in Fast and Furious. Conrad says, back here in Brazil when I was young, movies and cable TV were split in parts based on commercial breaks. Harry Potter had parts 1, 2, etc. Oh, that's neat. That's neat. Here in America, we just get really annoyingly placed commercial breaks. Gah! Meg says, I like how this pilot was split into multiple parts. It was like those montages you see in shows or movies when a character is telling a story, and it saves us from waiting for more episodes. Yeah, say that part split, it's a great artistic choice. And I'm just really surprised to have seen it. And it makes sense. Comcraft says, hypothesis here. I think Ken may have intentionally split his brain in half in order to try to give himself split brain syndrome to better divide his attention. I like that theory right there. I like that hypothesis. TV account says for some in my country, we get at least 3 or 4 commercial breaks depending on the length of the movie. Okay. Here in America, you get the amount of television breaks that people have paid for. Sometimes that's a lot. So shout out to Glitch's Mud character teaser post. Mud's a slime ball, but he's the smiling dead slime ball. For as long as he's scraping, cheating, and lying for them instead of against them, then everything will be fine. Yep, just fine. It says LMAO, yes. Yes, say, I can see Mud becoming a real problem in the future. And I mean, we've already been delivered what kind of a future that might be by the end of this episode. Concraft says, my first hypothesis was that Ken may have split his brain to keep something about himself suppressed. Maybe the urge to kill Mel? Possibly. I mean, we do see that his brain gets engaged when he's like, I'm going to go murder a man. I'm going to go wreck someone. So I like that. I really do like that hypothesis. So yeah, the family all together. Now then, let me skip on ahead a little bit right there, past the details. Okay, so this is a neat little aside. This almost serves no purpose in the episode whatsoever, so you know it's going to come in, or it better come in. This is right here. This is an example of Chekhov's gun, where we have been introduced to it to a literal embodiment of the lowest circle of hell from Dante's Inferno. That just looks absolutely messed up. But other than this reference from Ken, we don't know nothing about it in this episode. And so this is definitely one of those. This is definitely one of those Chekhov gun moments where it's like, okay, then you've shown us this. You've shown us that this is a place, that this is a real consequence. So therefore, you have to commit to it at one point. If you don't, then that scene was wasted space and time. Now, it's not foreshadowing because it's not hinting at any specific character going there. That's important. So Chekhov's gun is a type of foreshadowing, or it's a very specific foreshadowing, whereas foreshadowing is more like, okay then, so we've left you a trail of breadcrumbs. We've given you hints of what might happen to a specific character, or to a specific twist in the plot, or a specific reveal, or to a specific event. Chekhov's gun very clearly says, I have introduced a gun, or I've introduced a very important person, or thing, or event. I've drawn your attention to it. Therefore, it must become relevant. It must be used. It must be important later on. If not, then you have wasted valuable time. And you've completely misdirected the audience with a red herring. And red herrings, as their own trope, work best when they are in a mystery story. Too many red herrings in something that isn't a mystery, or even too many red herrings in a mystery, and it leads the audience to believe like they can't trust anything that they're reading or watching, which you don't want to do. Yep, Dante's Inferno. Mimic says, I love the callbacks to Dante's Inferno. It honestly looks just like how I imagined it. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of Dante's Inferno stuff going on. And both in the representation of the city, the different punishments for these people, then for purgatory, and for paradise, with Lost Paradise in many ways having kind of that gray purgatory feel, and then the Stairway to Heaven going up into the stars. It feels all very heavenly. And this is where I was wrong with my previous theory about what would happen with the story. It seems like all of this, the entire system, is demented and twisted, and has been because humanity embraced the curse of the Black Hand. So that is something I'm really interested to see how that is built on and developed the further we go. Comcast says, foreshadowing would be the angel mother describing that Mel will hear the call of the prophecy getting louder, followed by describing what the prophecy is in more detail. Yeah, kind of in a way, though we did already get it's just the first breadcrumb of foreshadowing right there, with that detail being dropped, and then Mel's reaction to it. Not just the angel mother saying that, but her reaction. That leads you to realize that is going to be important later on. Okay. Master IDH says, yeah, readers, watchers, players should get to feel smart enough. Yeah. And you want to and as a creator, you want to treat your audience, your intended target audience, as intelligent. Don't treat them as stupid. Hold their hand, but you need to hold their hand, but don't treat the people as idiots. Let the story speak for itself and see where it goes. Excuse me. ISO says, I was kind of a little disappointed that Mel wasn't stealing/rescuing another human in an angel egg. I kind of got attached to that theory. Yeah, I thought I was going to go that route as well, ISO. And no, that was way more selfish of her to be like, we're going to kill this A. We're going to kill a little innocent angel and pass it off as a human. This is a good moment right here for Ken. So again, the juxtapositioning. So him locking everything up. Not that anyone can hear through the crack in the wall by any means. And him then being very clear about like, okay, then you are a human, Mel. We cannot put you into any situation where others find out about who you are, what you are. Because if they do, he doesn't trust anyone, not even the other members of his crew. We've already seen that with Jack, and that it could happen then potentially with anyone else. And then Mel would be in serious danger. And that is brought up because he actually does care for his daughter. Even so much so that, as he explains right here in this montage, he went around getting rid of his own crew. And I love how she has a nosebleed from reading about sexy wigs. Oh, that's such a demented little detail. Master Knight says the early Cricket Jam chest in Super Mario RPG is a good example of the developers being rewarding. Okay, I'll have to take your word for that. Comcraft says, Hypothesis 2. It is a self-fulfilling prophecy. The fear of the prophesied human will push Mel to decide the district must go. The call is metaphorical only. Ooh, interesting. Can't believe they went full anime nosebleed. And it says, that's crazy. Yep, on all of that. Yeah, I know, the anime nosebleed is just ridiculous. Oh boy. You know what? There needs to be I bet there is, but I haven't yet found it, a compilation of all the amazing nosebleeds in anime. Just utterly ridiculous. The gallons upon gallons of gushing blood. You're a human, black blood. And all the other humans passing it along. And now everyone who is dead, or not exactly dead, but down there deep in the lost remains of humanity's earth. Just the sweet little details. There he is, cranking the camera, cranking the projector. So yeah, we get the whole description of everything that's going to happen. This I thought was fun and relevant because tonight we're going to be talking about puzzle encounters, and right here, Mel is creating her own puzzle encounter, or in this case, a heist. A heist is its own variation of puzzle encounter, though puzzle encounters tend to deal more with like actual puzzles. So already just kind of stepping a little bit ahead into what we're going to be talking about tonight. Say, puzzle encounters are a very broad umbrella of so many different things that you can do involving puzzles, magic, logic, physics, what have you, that require people to use their brains to overcome a certain situation. But ultimately, what Mel is planning right here is a heist. This is the planning of a heist scene, and then we then get to actually go out on the heist, and it's all good fun and games until someone's got to go and eat and brain. I'm looking at you, Ken. You're the one that caused this whole screw up. Ken, Jack found out how I became an anime girl for a few seconds. Well, Comicraft, thank you so much for being here, and have a fantastic dinner. And yes, please charge your phone. Meg says, I also like how the character who gets killed and dies in this pilot, some of them still seem to be alive but in excruciating pain, like in Dante's Inferno, where no one can die in hell. Mimic, you're absolutely right. We do get a very strong Dante's Inferno vibe going on throughout this pilot. And if any of you here have not yet read Dante's Inferno, I highly recommend doing it. It is a fantastic read. It's a chilling read, and it is self-insert fan fiction that changed the doctrine of heaven and hell in the Catholic Church. That's how good it was. I will be honest, I haven't read much of Paradise, of Purgatory or Paradise, so I can't really attest to how well those are as segments of the Divine Comedy. But the Inferno is where all the fun is at. So Mel trying to be a part of the crew, protect her identity, connect with good old Daddy-O. Oh, everything that we were led to, that we were told, that we were led to believe based on the promotional materials, we get it all here in this moment of Mel trying to be just like her dad, connecting with the crew, hiding her identity, planning all of this. And little does she know that she's just set herself up to fall. It's a good plan. And everything starts falling apart right here in this moment as her dad is looking at the details and sees diligence, the virtue that is voiced by Michael Kovac and is only around for like a grand total of maybe 30 seconds, maybe a little bit more than 30 seconds in this episode. So it seems like he's just kind of one and done, but I guarantee diligence is going to be around for a little while in one way or another. We're going to feel diligence's influence. I was also really shocked to find out that it was Ken who burns all the evidence regarding Mel and her identity as a human. I thought that Mud was going to do it because of the cigarette. Nope, I was completely misled. But again, little does Mel realize that she has set into motion events that she cannot take back by revealing that to her dad. Oh, and he broke his little dad glasses. That's, come on, Ken. As someone who wears glasses, don't you realize how expensive glasses are? So, daddy-daughter time. And we then get to the heist. This scene, okay, so let me actually bring this back a wee bit. So again, thinking about Dante's Inferno, and Dante's Inferno is only one part of the Divine Comedy, which is 3 parts to it: Inferno, Purgatory, and Heaven, or Paradise. When they're going up to when they're going up to Lost Paradise, look at how just washed out everything is. Like, we know that there's color, but everything is muted in one way or another. It's all grays, white and black. Even these characters that we've seen who have their own defined color are muted in this place. It's barren. It's in between. And it's very unsettling, which is part of what Purgatory is. Purgatory isn't hell in of itself, but it's not heaven either. It's a weird in between. Now then, I highly doubt that we're going to dive in any kind of way into the real symbolism of Purgatory throughout this show. I previously thought that Earth had been transformed into a kind of purgatory, but after watching this episode, it's clear it's all hell. From top to bottom, bottom to top. It's just, it's unsettling and bad. Oh, here we got this masochistic moment. Yeah, thank you for stepping on me. Now, don't look there. All right, Electro Burst X is here. Hey there. I thought Mel was a zombie first, but I figured she's a human, which Camille was right all along, because I saw Ken gives a bandage to Mel, and I saw human skin from her ripped clothing. Yeah, exactly. This episode is very clear. It wants you to know she is human, and she knows that she's human. An interesting little detail, though, is that in her map, her web of clues and of plans, still remains that question of where does she come from. And so I think that's really interesting. I think that part of what Mel is up to is not just simply trying to blend in by erasing the possibility that she's a human, at least to the masses, but that part of what she's wanted to do by going to Lost Paradise and going on this adventure is the hopes that in some way she will learn about her origins, whether from what she learns in Lost Paradise or hopefully from her dad, by him opening up and being more honest with her, more direct about who they are, where she's come from, and everything. Then it says, imagine making a self-insert fanfiction that ended up changing the entire course of a religion. Kind of glad that My Immortal didn't end up having that same impact. Oh, that would be so bad. TV account, is My Immortal really that bad? TV account, the answer is yes. Oh, it is bad. It is gloriously bad. It's so bad that there are people who wonder, there's a running theory online that it's all made up, in the sense like that all of the horrible stuff, everything was planned from the beginning, and that it's actually a geniusly written parody of bad fanfic. And while that's a very fun theory, I think it was just legitimately awful, and it's so awful it became art. It's the kind of art that you point at and laugh and cringe. Tyler says, this feels like a heist episode mixed with eldritch horror and angels abominations. Yes, 100%. Iso says, now I've been thinking, why did Ken take Mel in if the prophecy says she'll destroy the Gaslight District? That's a great question, Iso. My personal thoughts are that that he honestly was just like, wow, it's a cute little baby, and I'm going to protect it. Now, I am her dad now. And we know that there's some sort of history between him and Diligence. And we know, thanks to the picture that he burns, that Diligence raised Mel for a short time. So there's some real history there that we just unfortunately don't yet know. And I'm seriously looking forward to finding out. Oh, imagine having that thing fall on you, and you're still alive, or at least you will be alive. And there they then go to Checkpoint Heaven, which I don't know how many of you have seen Wakfu, but there's some definite Wakfu end of season 3 vibes happening in this section of the episode. It says it's so bad it's good. So maybe he stuck a cleaver in his head to separate the side that wanted to kill her from the side that wanted to protect her. And that's something that was already floated by Commoncraft. And I think that's a good, legit theory. And that would also help to explain his mood swings, and why in his mood swings, he gets very close to injuring Mel. And it's really that protective instinct that prevents him from doing far worse to her than he could. Because I mean, he beats up Breadhead. He's punched off Mud's head. So yeah. Jigan says it's the Lion King situation. And now we get put on the clothes. I'm impressed that Ken could fit into that costume. So there we have the heist. The heist playing out as it ought to, which, oh man, Breadhead, look, what a man for cutting off his own head. Come on, little birdie. Electroburst X says, so that means Mel has given the treatment from the first Hotel Transylvania movie when Dracula gave a monster costume to Johnny to hide him from the monsters. Yeah, kind of. That's pretty much what's going on here, though. Way more demented than Hotel Transylvania. And Mud meets someone that he once knew, absolutely despises him, gets rid of him, we got the swarm of angels now running amok to absolutely destroy the place. And this is where we can see how heaven is just not a great sight either. And here we got Ken. Ken breaks his promise and his word with Mel, and this is where everything begins to go south. Now then, let me bring this back just a little bit. I am looking forward to someone, I can also try my hand at this. There is a lot of coding right up here at the laboratory, and on the door here. So there's codes to decipher. I am very interested in seeing what is written here. It's probably nothing too world shattering, but this might help give us a little bit of a clue as to what Diligence has been working on, which will be important going forward. Meg says, I like how the cute vulture birds sort of look. I like how the cute angel birds sort of look like vultures. Yeah, they're an interesting mix of like crow, raven, vulture thingies. They are a really unique choice, and I like it. I like the feel of just how over the hedge this is. Like, this is not like any other kind of show that I've seen before, and I like that. It makes it feel wonderfully fresh. And can I just say this? I love Mel in her guards getup. Like this, I want to see cosplay of Mel at the next Comic-Con with this, not just of her in her wrappings, but of her in the guards gear, because she looks so dang cute and cool in that getup. Ken being dad, but Dad, you should know, once you've given your word to your daughter, don't break it. Yes, they just made a promise right there, but he's already broken his previous promise, which gives Mel all the reasoning she needs to climb the stairway to heaven. Stairway to heaven. Again, artsy fartsy stuff everywhere. And it says, facts, she's adorable. Yes. And again, so coming back to juxtapositioning, we get that here in this shot, in the split screen, where the two are even looking at each other. Yes, they don't actually see each other, but like he's glancing over her shoulder, she's glancing back at the door, and both of them are all like, you got me into this, and I'm about to do something that I know I shouldn't, but I'm going to do it anyway. And so in this case, it's not so much a juxtaposition as it is showing the similarities between father and daughter in this particular shot. And this is just, again, this is artsy fartsy stuff that most other people would show a quick shot of Ken looking over his shoulder and being like having an expression that you're trying to read, and then another shot of Mel looking back at the door with an expression that you're supposed to read. But in this case, by doing the split screen, having them looking at each other, it says so much more in a very quick moment. Which, again, that rolls into what people said about this episode feeling just a little too fast. And again, I can kind of agree with that, because this episode is trying to do so much with a limited runtime. And it does. It does, but it has to then rely on a lot of these artistic choices, which most people are not prepared for. Movies and shows aren't quite made this way anymore. Electroverse says, okay, is the creator Nick is trying to make Mel cute, creepy, or creepy cute? Because I see the creator's artwork of Mel, and I can't tell what he's trying to do. Yes, to all of the above. Creepy, cute, creepy, with a very good chance that she's going to shank you with her curved knife. Like father, like daughter. Yes, that is what this shot is all about, and it works wonderfully. And this is why the artsy fartsiness within the show, I feel, really works to its advantage and really helps it to feel unique compared to everything else currently out there, or to what Glitch Productions has done in the past. Now, everything that's happening in this scene right here, we got to go the virtue, temperance. Okay, so I got it wrong. Not diligence, temperance. I got that wrong. It is temperance that we're dealing with here. Diligence is the one that's the masochist stepping on everyone. But yeah, I need to comb through this scene frame by frame, because there is so much going on in the background, and because this is a show that's already at this point shown that you need to be paying attention to those blink and you miss some moments. There's got to be something that's happening in here that gives us more insight on what has been happening up here in heaven. Yeah, and see, it even calls into question, like, what the heck is going on with that egg thing? It gets 3 question marks. And then something opens its eye. Say, this is just... Also, who here in this moment? Let me see if... I probably can't immediately pull it right off the bat. Who here is getting the same vibe as Knights of Guinevere in this in this particular shot? Let me quickly grab up that moment in the trailer. Hold on a sec here, because I know that I have it somewhere on my computer, but it's probably very buried amongst all the different files. So let's see here. I was strolling through the park one day when merrily along the way. All right. There we go. I finally got it, and it will be coming up here shortly. But yeah, definitely some Knights of Guinevere vibes, for similarities coming through in this moment. And just to show, I'm not deafen you guys. Also, I mean, this is completely shifting gears for a quick moment, but I still am so excited for this show to come out. There we go. Okay, and then let me pop back on over to here to the show. I'll pull that back just a little bit. See, it's just, it feels absolutely the same, and in a good way. Closing the door quietly as he comes in. So freaking cool. Badass scene right there. I'm like, oh my MG, it just realizes practically the exact scene. Good catch, Lars. Yeah. Just see him like, I know I've seen this before. Knights of Guinevere in the teaser trailer. So here we get a moment that I previously thought was going to be a flashback, and it's not a flashback. And this is crazy seeing this. Like, of course, we are lacking all context into what's going on in this moment, but you know this is going to be important later on. And Temperance is getting the snot beaten out of them with a chicken. The one thing, though, is this. So, while it seems like Ken is winning, Mud, who's watching all of this, is like, no, man, we don't need that kind of heat. Makes you wonder what just happened here. What crazy mistake was just committed by Ken. And so we won't know. We're gonna have to find out. Tune in for the next episode whenever that comes out. And here we've got the angel mother. I was not expecting this scene at all. I thought that Mel was going to make it up to heaven way later on in the series. Then here we are facing off against this thing, that she's the mother of the angels, and that she knows what's going on. Yeah, did not see any of that stuff coming. I also didn't expect her to actually injure Mel right then and there, which is an interesting boss move to make. But it's ultimately one to show to impress upon both Mel and on the audience that forces of fate or powers that be or the angels are in way more control than the depravity and horrible freedom of humanity down below would seem to imply. And Ken probably just made a really big mistake by eating that brain. Yeah, say again, we're missing some serious context for this particular scene and what it could mean. Say, theorists get ready. Also, interestingly, bringing that back on up, either Ken is healing from what just happened, or the brain is what is healing inside of Ken. When we get that flash, and we know that the brain has the mark of the hand on it as well, so that's going to be interesting. That's going to be very interesting for later. And then we got Mick saying, and the robot girl in the Night Squinvier trailer looks a lot like the White Angel cyborg robot guy, voiced by Michael and his pilot. And Comicraft is back. What'd you miss? Let's see here. It's been a while. Actually, it hasn't been all that long. You just missed us talking about the heist, really. Fighting over the head. And then the burning of the of all of the documents. Oh man. This is, I need to know more. What was going on here? What is the context behind this picture? Why does Ken have Mel? And what was the arrangement between him and Temperance? I must know. It's what I'm looking forward to the most in future episodes. As everything burns, a singular eye looks down on Ken. And the transition to the egg is not a mistake, because again, a lot of this is so artsy-fartsy. That means that something is happening as far as like birth goes. Birth or rebirth. Yeah, Temperance is working on something. And it's going to be big for later. So Mel is absolutely trying to keep a hold of that egg because it's all part of her scheme. And there she goes, losing a tooth. Oh, that tooth is long gone now. Plans changed. Oh, yeah. Say, this is definitely a sequence of events I can understand. Like one of the earlier criticisms, I think it was either from Comicraft or from Iconic, about how fast everything... Or no, from... No, it was from... Hold on. Let me go back. From James. James Werner was talking about how everything was moving so fast. It was hard to keep track of the action. And this is one of those scenes where that is definitely happening, because it's just jumping back and forth. Artsy fartsiness, trying to show the connection between everything that's going on, between everyone right here. And yes, this is one instance where it probably is way more artsy than it should have been. And while it looks really cool, it might be going too fast through the motions, that it doesn't give you the chance to fully process everything that's going on and truly understand what you're seeing. So I can understand that criticism. Conqueror says, I took a bit of a scare earlier while I was finishing eating. My younger sister was watching YouTube on TV. Then suddenly I began to hear the dub of the opening narration, The Gaslight District. I had to stop her from watching because she's too young. Yes, this is not meant for little kids. There's plenty of other great shows out there for kids. This is not one of them. Alexis, let me guess, if Mel gets brutally stabbed or shot, she won't be able to come to life because she's human. Exactly. She could get the mark of the curse, but Ken does not want her to receive the mark. And that's very important. Is that Ken's baby daddy holding Mel in the picture? The answer is yes. Yes, Mimic, that is indeed the case. She's watching Alan Beck right now. Oh, Alan Becker. Okay. Stab the angel, stomp on the head, and it is still very much alive. While I don't see the marking of the hand, there's a lot of other runes that are etched into that angel. Hey, I got my head back somehow. Brilliant. Yep, and so they've got the chase scene. Mel goes down. I was shocked because I was not expecting this sudden change. Also, I'm sorry, Ken, but you're not exactly one to speak in this moment. Here, let me bring this up. And love that. Love the aesthetic for Heaven, even though it's as twisted as demented as everything else.
Meet me at the entrance.
Meets me at the gates. There she goes down. With the crazy moment. For a second there, I was all like, are they actually going to kill Mel? That's a woo. Yes, here we have the hypocrite moment for Ken.
Do our pinky promises mean nothing to you?
Yeah, get over yourself, Ken. Now, exactly. Say, this whole scenario could have been avoided if Ken didn't go after Temperance. Because Ken did, things got screwy. Now, granted, Ken should never have allowed Mel to go on this crazy heist anyway, but this was him trying to show that he did trust her, that he was going to be a good dad, that he wanted to understand her, and she gave him a way out in terms of trying to keep her hidden. It was, in theory, a good plan, but that good plan went out the window when Ken decided to go for personal vendetta, or whatever it was that led him to go after Temperance. Comic says, I saw a comment on the video that this seems to be the first on a heist going wrong because of the veteran and not the newbie. Yes. That is a good detail to point out right there. Because normally we do expect that the noob is going to be the one to cause all the problems. In this case, it was the veteran, and that was a fun little way to subvert your typical expectations. Now then, we've got Electro Burst saying, to be honest, hear me out. I wanted to see the baby live Mel when she was growing up with Ken, Mud, and Breadhead, because we saw the picture of Mel as a baby and see how Ken raised her. We might get a flashback to that, and that would be interesting to see the earlier family dynamic within the Smiling Dead and how Mel fit into all of that. And how did you explain away Mel to everyone else in a world where it seems like humanity is pretty stuck and stagnant in their current state of debauchery, of just the ongoing festival of hellish delights and depravity. And we've got the word quick rising. I love that. That's a neat little moment. Yeah, there we go. Breadhead. Strong Breadhead. Strong Breadhead, along with good Breadhead, is best Breadhead. And it is without Bedhead, too. Oh, man. Yep. Say, Ken living with the consequences of his actions. Such a good exchange right there. Oh, yeah. Say, good action. Say, again, the pacing is really fast. This goes way beyond what we've gotten with Murder Drones. Like, Murder Drones episodes 7 and 8 had really good, seamless action. This show is not determined to show very realistic action. And when I say realistic, in terms of like, oh, this makes sense within the world that has been set up. Again, this show is very artsy, and so it's going to take way more liberties with how it conveys action and fighting than anything else that we've seen so far from Glitch. Lecture says, I call Breadhead Breadman. He's Breadman. Oh, yeah. He's a Breadman. Commoncraft, I wonder what happened in the past. Ken hates Temperance's guts, yet it's all but said that Ken got Mel from him. Exactly. We are missing a big bit of context. Let's see here. Comcast says also, I wonder if there are any new births or if the population is mostly static. The answer may help understand why every rotling is low-key tweaking all the time. Yeah, and you know what? Here's another thing, is that if you remove the possibility of death, then why would any species feel the need to procreate? You can still enjoy all your sexy fun times without the need for procreation. And I think that that's part of the answer right there. Granted, that is a good world building question that we should see answered. I don't know if it will be answered, but I would like to see it get answered. Let's see. Rennick says that angel bird grandma was one pissed off kiwi bird. Oh yeah, she was. And Comic says Mel being new and young helps Ken to be more human again. I think so. I think that Ken cares for Mel because he genuinely does, but that there is a sense of regaining his humanity thanks to her being in his life. I will say it again, Ken is easily the most human character in this entire show that we've seen so far. And I think that that's actually really beautiful to show that maybe the threat that a human brings to the world of the Gaslight District is not of what they can do to destroy, but what a human can do to inspire others. And we see how Ken is inspired to be more human thanks to Mel. And thanks to that family dynamic, I think that the Smiling Dead are actually way more close-knit than they might otherwise have been. Or otherwise be, I should say. And I believe that is indeed the power that a human can bring to this particular kind of fallen world. Now, we get a whole lot more. Again, every single bit of this episode needs to be combed over with a fine brush to find every single little detail. Because look at this. There are codes hidden in here as well. There's just a lot going on. And here's the interesting thing. We already get a hint that something is going to go wrong because the cracked egg shows a bird. It's a demented looking little bird, but it's a bird nonetheless. So everything goes belly up from this point on. Calvin Craft says, this whole thing reminds me of a Vampire the Masquerade in some ways. Interesting. For those of you who don't know, this is one thing I can comment on because I know a little bit about Vampire the Masquerade. For those of you who don't know, Vampire the Masquerade is a tabletop RPG role-playing game where you create a character who is a vampire. And you are living your life as a vampire, trying to hide your identity while also being the best vampire that you can because it is the masquerade. Every vampire, all the different tribes and groups of vampires are all allowed to do their own things, but within expectations. There are rules that they've set for themselves in order to avoid conflict and the depletion of human resources. And not the kind of HR that is supposed to help you out with your paychecks, but the kind of human resources that are meant to be eaten or turned into thralls and the likes. And it's a game of intrigue. And yeah, I can definitely see some of those vibes coming across here in this show. But yeah, so everyone is brought together for the death of the human. And this is where we get to see Mel actually show her most humanity, which is interesting because here's the thing is that Mel has been a part of murdering all these people who they're not actually going to die because no one else does die. Humans can. And here she is. She's like, as far as she's concerned, this is just an angel egg. What if there is another human? What if she actually murders someone for real? That is this scene. And if she doesn't, and people also then realize that this is a fake, she's doomed. Mel thought this all through, but we're now at a moment where everything could go wrong in an instant, one way or the other, and she can feel it. She doesn't know what it is, but something could go and is about to go wrong. And indeed it does. And so as Ken is just building everything up to this moment, and again, great artsy fartsy stuff right here. Anyone getting some good Nightmare Before Christmas vibes right here from the Oogie Boogie, from the Boogeyman right here. Like that's kind of what I'm getting right here. So here she is in the shadow of a boogeyman. This is supposed to be her dad, who we've seen love her, genuinely love her, and she's in the shadow of a monster. And even though he's doing this all for her, there's something very wrong about this. And this is where we can finally see the humanity in the show's singular human. There's so much great stuff happening in this scene, in this moment. Electroburst says, question, who is a better father? Doofenshmirtz from Phineas and Ferb or Ken the Butcher from the Gaslight District? As of episode 1 of the Gaslight District versus all the episodes that we've gotten of Phineas and Ferb, Heinz Doofenshmirtz is absolutely the best father. I mean, that guy dresses up like a clown for his daughter. Everything that this guy has done despite his horrible upbringing. He's just a lovely, sweet little cinnamon roll. A little cracked up there at the end. ISO says, this was my favorite scene. Now, that was an emotional roller coaster. I thought when Mel made that face that she wouldn't destroy the egg out of sympathy or fear, but when it started to hatch, it got all dramatic and focused on the egg, and I thought for a moment that it would hatch into an actual human, just like Mel. There are so many ways this scene could have gone, and I experienced a very strong emotional up and down in this scene alone, so I love it a lot. Yes, this scene is just, it's an emotional masterpiece. It's really, really good. It makes you feel and think all these different things in the moment, because anything could happen in this moment, and it's bad any way it goes. And Mel only at this point realizes that. And again, this is kind of the difference now between her and her father, Ken, is that while Ken has shown great humanity, and again, I would argue he has actually shown the most humanity throughout this episode, this is the moment where Mel shows her humanity, and it's in such a critical moment because it goes beyond anything else so far. This is about life itself. Now, hold on a second here, guys. I got a cat who's trying to break down the door. Meow, meow, meow. Now, there's Honey. Come on in, Honey. Oh, come here, fat cat. There we go. Let's see here. Mike says, honestly, me watching this dark, grimy pilot today was very fitting for me. I currently have some very messy bedhead that I haven't brushed in 4 days. Oh boy. Say, please take care of yourself, Mivik. Don't let yourself become like them. Concraft says, vampires, especially in the newest edition, need normal human relationships to remain and regain their humanity. Oh, I did not know that. I have to talk with the friend of mine who introduced me to Vampire the Masquerade. I should ask her if she's looked into that. Concraft said the worst part is that Mel's plan was doomed to failure. Even if she had done it, the egg would likely open and the angel would be visible to all. The egg was way too developed. Exactly. Yeah, there was her plan. Her plan was in theory a good one, but at the very end is where it was doomed to fall apart. Kitty! Electra says, very true, my friend, of Doofenshmirtz being a better father. Exactly. Heinz Doofenshmirtz really is the best dad. So we finally have, and what I find interesting is how everyone just kind of accepts that the angels are right there and and just kind of takes them for granted, which I feel is going to be important later on. And there comes the cracking. And so I was confused. I was confused in this moment for what this meant. Because again, this was very incredibly artsy-fartsy. Because here she is, alone, in the lights. And basically, this is supposed to be symbolic of truth beaming down on Mel. That her lie can no longer be hidden as the egg hatches. Everything that she's built up towards is now in full view of everyone. In a world of darkness and deceit, she is now front and center. There is no hiding anymore. That is what this means. And as everyone now comes into focus as well, it shows just how in danger she is. Mel has put herself into a horrible situation, and this brings up what Jack was proposing earlier, and what's hinted at throughout the rest of this episode. Will he fight the entire island to save his daughter? Because all the thousands of twisted human denizens will be coming after Mel to stop the prophecy that they fear so much. And here we end up. And there's Ken, he's staying right by his daughter, but he is also in that light. So while they are not literally encompassed about by enemies, there's no more hiding who they are, what they have done. They are committed to this. And we will see who they are, what they become going forward. It's all good, fun danger from here on out. Oh my gosh, this was a great, an absolutely great episode. Yeah, run. They should run. Yeah, why Mel could have smashed the egg already before it hatches. She could have, but as was brought up earlier, they would have probably then noticed that she had just sacrificed an angel rather than a human. And then we get this whole sequence right here feels very like late 90s, early 2000s while they were toying around with what they could do back then with the limits of CGI animation. That is what this sequence all feels like. And we are told then here that everyone has secrets. And some of them will be dredged up. And here we got Jake way down here at the bottom. And truth is about to come up. And the interesting thing is that, I mean, already the truth is out there to us as the audience and is basically there for everyone in the world to piece together that Mel is the human. So why is his rescue shown as the very last detail of the episode? It means that there are still more secrets waiting to be uncovered, waiting to be revealed, that are in this world that all these other people have. It's going to be wild. We don't even yet know the full extent of what the lies are that we've been told in this show. It's going to be good. And the music choice was really interesting there at the end. How it feels all old-timey and then it stutters and statics out into nothing. Say, very, very interesting choice. I personally think it's either Mud or Diligence letting Jake up from underwater. I could see Mud doing it, or Diligence, yeah, or maybe someone else that we have yet to be introduced to. But as far as our current cast of characters go, Mud and Diligence would definitely be ones that we would want to watch out for as far as reeling Jake up from his horrible eternal drowning scenario. He says, when that adorable angel bird hatched from the egg and made that cute little squawk, I literally squealed in pure joy. So cute! I wanted to go into the screen and hug it. Yeah, say Glitch. What you need to do is you need to make us merch of all the angels. I bet that's what they're going to do. I guarantee that will be a future plushie. So yeah, this is wow, this was the introduction to this show. And it's, in a word, it is wild. And again, it's absolutely incredible to me what they've all covered, the way that they've managed to develop the characters, the themes, how they're able to build up emotion. This is a very, very unique show, not just for right now, but even throughout animation and storytelling. This is a very unique story. And when people say that there's nothing new anymore being made these days, yeah, sure, we see similar tropes and ideas and concepts, like we were talking earlier about the whole heaven is bad deal, which was just made popular thanks to Has Been Hotel and Hell of a Boss. But this is very different from that, and it goes to show that people can still be very original and creative. And I think that that's a great sign of hope for storytelling that's brought out from this show. Is it the best show that Glitch Productions has ever made? Oh, we will find out as they continue to work on the series, and of course as they round off the Amazing Digital Circus. I love Murder Drones. It's such a fun show. It didn't hold up at the very end, unfortunately, despite as much as I enjoyed the final episode. The Amazing Digital Circus is tight from a narrative standpoint. It is solid. This was just the first episode of a new show. We're still getting used to things. There's a lot to come. I am very excited for it. So there will be, like I said, there will just be so much to talk about in the coming days and weeks and months leading up to the next episode. So I'm really, really excited. And like I said, I will be doing my own actual breakdown of the events of this episode, diving more into the themes and into the actual writing that's been done, especially because I need to let this, I think, settle a little bit more and have the chance to write out my thoughts in order to fully capture what it is that we've just witnessed. So let's see here. So coming back to what you guys were writing right here. ISO says, there are some scenes in the trailer with Jake in them, so he's definitely not gone yet. I think that we actually I think every scene that we so far got from the trailer actually did happen in this episode. If one didn't, then I'll have to be pointed out to me. Concar says, I've been trying to point out the reason I thought of Vampire the Masquerade earlier was the sect of demented humanity rejecting vampires is called Sabbat, with the epithet of the Black Hand. Ooh, that's really cool. Nice little connection to the show. I can definitely see why you thought of that. Omega says, so the baby angel is going to be our mascot, isn't it? Yes, it is. Electro Burst X says, like me as a creator to work at Glitch Production, just in general for all of us as creators. Grecoy is going now. Grecoy, thank you so much for being here with us. It was great having you here, and thank you for your comments. ISO responding to I'm Omega. Oh man, I really hope so. I bet this little guy can be absolutely adored by the fan base. Nick says, this show is amazing. If I could describe it in one word, it would be unhinged. I agree. In the best way possible. Great job, Mr. Nick and Glitch Studios. Yes, they have done a fantastic job with this show. This was a strong opening. Now again, I want to address that this show will not be for everyone, and that is A-okay, because it is so different in terms of the feel, in terms of the animation, the characters, the pacing, the themes, the messaging, everything. It is so unique and out there and different, dark, demented, that I understand if this isn't for everyone. And it's actually one of the reasons why I want more people to actually watch it, because I want more people to see this and to get feedback, to see what gels for general audiences and what doesn't. Because I'm someone who I like to tell really crazy off the wall stories when I can. this is something that, like, this show right here, this is the kind of story that I would like to, not necessarily in terms of its atmosphere, but in terms of its dynamic characters, its off-the-wall craziness, going really bizarre with some of my artistic choices and some of my narrative actions and stunts. This is the kind of story that I personally really like to tell. And the Monarch Mercenaries is probably the closest I've gotten to something like this. But that's a very different kind of story because that's an adventure story in space with magical space pirates. So comparing the Monarch Mercenaries to the Gaslight District would be like comparing apples to oranges or bananas to oranges. But both of them are completely unrepentant in the insane story that they want to tell. And it's a gamble. It is a true gamble to tell a story that way because, again, it isn't necessarily for everyone. And I want to see how more and more people handle this show, what their thoughts are on it going forward. There we go. Take another drink of water. Iso says, I think the scene from the trailer that hasn't happened yet was when Jake was in the tavern and hugged by two people next to him excitedly. I checked back to see who he hugged. Okay. Comcraft says, I just realized that Mel's kind of reverse vampire. It says, there is a comedy action series called Hunter the Parenting that's based in the Vampire the Masquerade's universe. It's about a family of hunters who are unraveling conspiracy within the hunters. Okay. Interesting. Very interesting. I'll have to look into that. Meg says, yes, I agree. The show is not for everyone, nor is it for the faint of heart either. This has the most violence I've seen in a glitch pilot/show ever, even more than Murder Drones. Yes, this goes beyond what Murder Drones did. And Murder Drones for a few episodes definitely embraced its more gory side, like Cabin Fever. Cabin Fever was a definitely good slasher, gory installation. The pilot with the description of what V is doing to the other drones is when you stop to think about it, like, oh, that's really messed up. So yeah, there's definitely some gore and messed up sequences in Murder Drones, but they were more the exception rather than the rule because of what Murder Drones wished to address. And it's a complete difference in terms of setting and the atmosphere that's being established. I think that we could have a really interesting discussion in terms of comparison based on how each show, while taking things that are kind of similar to each other, end up going in very different directions. So yeah. And that was very vague of me to say. That was a very vague way of me saying that basically Murder Drones and the Gaslight District both employ very dark settings with very demented characters with lots of gore and action. But Murder Drones wants to tell a story of teenage robots doing shenaniganery and an eldritch horror, doing a true Lovecraftian horror. This is not a Lovecraftian horror. This is a different kind of story altogether. And so despite the fact that it has a very dark setting with dynamic characters, lots of action, this wants to do something different. The Gaslight District is ultimately a different story, which is why it ends up being even more violent and more chaotic, more artistic, because that's what it wishes to be. Just that hangnail moment. Moving on from that. Let's see here. I will make it continuing on. So the Hunters organ. Let me catch up here. Where was it earlier? Okay. So it's about a family of hunters who are unraveling conspiracy within the Hunters organization. It's made by Organ Ponganame, the same guy who made If the Emperor Has a Text to Speech Device. Best way to describe it is animation styles basically like those motion comics, but cartoony. Okay. Concraft says also Hunter the Parenting audio logs have enough animation to deserve being watched on a normal screen. Okay. Well, thank you guys for the input and for the recommendation there. Conquer says something very interesting about Hunter the Parenting is that it has filler in the form of audio log episodes, which are mostly half character building and interaction within some of the plots, and half is only recently case I've seen of a show with character building episodes. Very, very interesting. Like ingrown toenail. Yeah, they gave me Squidward toenail flashbacks. Very well animated, but oh, I agree. Very, very, very unsettling. Now then, we have been talking almost nonstop Gaslight District for nearly 2 hours. There's even still more to say, but we will be moving on now to the next to the next item of the evening. However, serendipitously, look at where we ended up. Trespassers will be detained and sent to the Inferno, Purgatory, and Paradise. And here, for those of you who don't know about the Inferno is a city that spirals on downwards to its lowest circle of hell, which is of ice. And there you have a good representation of the Inferno. And because we've gotten that, I expect that we're going to get at least one episode, if not a few episodes, where we get to descend into the Inferno. And I am definitely looking forward to that. Now then, just to also draw a quick point of compare and contrast between the Gaslight District and the Inferno, or ultimately the Divine Comedy. The Divine Comedy is about Dante Alighieri going on a journey through purgatory, on a journey, a pilgrimage through the Inferno, through purgatory, and Paradiso, through paradise, in order to meet the woman that he loved, who he wrote about in Vita Nuova, which is the new life. And it is basically that whole story is basically him being a pining teenager, wanting to get together with a woman who gets married to another man. Very weird story. But his muse, Beatrice, he absolutely loved her. In real life, she died very, very early on in whatever relationship they might have had. And so, weirdly enough, he was married to another gal, had plenty of kids with her, but he dedicates his pilgrimage through the Inferno, through purgatory and paradise to her, and the story ends with him joining her at the highest level of heaven, becoming one with God. And it's an interesting story right there. Now then, when you know that this personal pilgrimage through 3 planes of existence to learn the truths of the world and of humanity, and to give Dante hope, because he wrote the Inferno, he wrote the Divine Comedy while he was in exile and looking for hope. And it was his way also dedicating something to his teenage crush, so on and so forth. Can we expect any of that in this show? My answer is no. I don't think that we're going to get that. I think that the aesthetic of the Divine Comedy is being used to show what this world has become and what it stands to transform into or lose based on the events surrounding Mel. That is what I think is the purpose behind the aesthetic. Unless Part-Time Seagull was like, you know what? I just really like the setting of the Divine Comedy. I'm just going to use it. No one's gonna notice, right? Like how anime is always using the 7 deadly sins without actually thinking about what they're doing. Yeah, I'm going to do that too. No one's going to notice. I don't think that's what happened. I think that it's meant to be a very purposeful aesthetic to get us thinking about stuff. Electroverse says, well, guys, I got to go because my family and I are preparing for a party. Woohoo! Electroverse, thank you so much for joining us here, and I hope that you have a fantastic time at the party. Do a little bit of a jig for us when you're there, especially for me, because I love going dancing. Concraft, why did that toenail have to have a blood vein stuck in it? To make us feel very queasy, that's why. 9 levels indeed. Yeah, traders get frozen today. Concraft, fun fact, Inferno, in at least Portuguese language, literally is the word for hell. Oh, that's cool. And I'm pretty certain it's the same way for Italian. I actually got to read the Inferno in my Italian Renaissance literature class in college. Yeah, it's one of those classes you're like, wait, that's actually a class? It was. And it was fun. That was a really fun professor to have, a really interesting class. And he actually read the Inferno to us in Italian. So I had no idea what he was saying. But oh my gosh. Dante Alighieri was a genius. It flows so beautifully and so hauntingly in the original Italian. It's just, it sounds absolutely magnificent. Also, one of the things I definitely take away from that class is my professor is like, so who is the greatest poet to ever live? And people began naming some like a whole litany of different poets. There's some people who, because we were reading the Inferno, are like Dante Alighieri. He's like, no, the greatest poet who has ever lived is Dr. Seuss. Everyone laughed, and he said, no, don't laugh. Do not laugh. You do not know the power of Dr. Seuss until you have a 4-year-old daughter, and every single night you are reading multiple times, 1 fish, 2 fish, red fish, blue fish. When you read it every single night, the universe opens up to you. He's like, it's like I'm going insane reading his poetry, but it's so beautiful, it's so catchy, and I can't get it out of my head. He had a really, really sweet daughter, though. He brought her onto campus a couple of times. Fun days. My undergraduate days were amazing in college. My graduate days in college, I was like, I'm dying inside. Why? All right. So, let's hear. Comcraft said, I've heard Dante's Inferno described as one of the most popular and successful self-insert fanfics ever. The answer is yes. Yes. If not one of it is the most popular and successful self-insert fanfic of all time, where he uses his fanfic to get revenge on everyone who ever wronged him. So everyone who he hates in real life ends up in hell in some way or another. Concard says, my sister had a hyperfixation with the 3 little piggies followed by Little Red Riding Hood. Yep, all kids have that hyperfixation. For me as a kid, I really, really enjoyed reading Mike Mulligan and his Steam Shovel, which is a book from the 1930s. It's from the Great Depression. It's a really fun book, though. And also Kathy the Snowplow. So I really liked vehicles, which is ironic because I'm not good when it comes to cars. In any case, as I said, we will talk more about this show in the future. But for now, let us return to what are going to be our goals for the rest of this evening, because we've been here for nearly 2 hours talking about the Gaslight District. Let's see here. What do you guys want to talk about next? Sound off in the chat. Do you guys want to talk about creating puzzle encounters, or should we dive straight into redeeming hated tropes? Let me know. Master Knight says hated tropes. Okay, so we got one vote for hated tropes. Mimic says, I was a Dr. Seuss fanatic as a toddler. I even played all the Dr. Seuss computer games growing up. I have no shame and no judgment. I didn't even know that there were computer games based on his works. I'm not sure what I think about that. Let's see here. Hannah's the second vote for hated tropes. ISO says, I want to hear about the puzzles. Conquer says, sorry, I got to go again. My sister's insisting she wants a night snack. Only wants me to do it, nobody else. Yes, little siblings. Yep, know how that goes. So yeah, good. So have fun with the snack. So we got two votes for redeeming hated tropes, one for puzzles. Don't worry, we're going to get to everything tonight. I refuse to end this until we've hit both lessons. Say, I'm going to give you guys to the count of 10. Give me a chance to get another cough drop and some water. Maybe says, lastly, seeing Mel hesitate to destroy the angel egg, etc., instantly flashed me back to an animated film I watched called Angel's Egg, directed and written by Mamoru Oshii in 1985. Similar themes. You know, I gotta look this up. Angel's Egg. The Angel's Egg. Angel's Egg. Oh, very interesting. I'll have to try to watch this later. Okay. So we got so far 2 votes to 1 about hated tropes. So let's move on to hated tropes. Don't worry, ISO. We're going to talk about puzzle encounters soon enough. Okay, so redeeming your most hated trope. There's a lot of tropes that absolutely grind our gears and get on our nerves. Let's just admit it. And in some cases, a poorly written, used, or downright bad trope can absolutely destroy an otherwise good story. And for some reason, these bad tropes just keep getting used. A really good example of a bad trope ruining an otherwise good story is the movie Next with Nicolas Cage. The whole, and then I woke up, it was just a dream. Time travel resets everything. Oh, that was so frustrating because it undid such an epic conclusion. It was really, really cool. And it made you want to know how they were going to fix it all. And then come to find out you're now at the back of the beginning of the movie. And now Nicolas Cage is like, I know how to solve everything. And then the movie ends right there. And you're like, wait, what? No, that's a horrible way to end a story. So, let's just remember this. All tropes, even your most hated of tropes, are not actually bad in and of themselves. Tropes are the means by which we tell our stories. They're like the gears in a clock. Without those gears, the clock can't work. Without tropes, your story literally cannot function. Every single story ever written or told is told through tropes. You must have tropes. If you don't have tropes in a story, you haven't said anything. Because tropes are basically what we label the different elements of your story. So the elements to a story aren't necessarily bad in and of themselves. It's about how we utilize them. Just like gears are not bad unless they don't mesh well. If they don't mesh well, then it disrupts the clock. It breaks the clock. Same with if you use a trope incorrectly or if you use the wrong trope within your story, then it will derail your story. It causes hiccups. We don't want that to happen. Master Knight says, I just realized I commentated on my Secret of Evermore about how that game handles given tropes surprisingly well. Namely, the computer is cheating bugger, lost forever, and guide. Dang it. All right, so what I want you to do is this. Step back and think for a moment. Think. Why do you hate the tropes that you do? Why? At least pick one trope. You can have multiple tropes if you wish, but think about at least one trope, what that is, and why you hate it. Take a moment to list them out and why they're bad, and we're going to have a discussion. And I'm going to give you guys some of the tropes that I really do not like here in the chat. So one of the ones I hate. The dreaded love triangles. Ugh, I do not like love triangles. And then here's another one. Kicked out of the hero's party. Oh boy. I really do not like kicked out of the hero's party. And we're gonna talk, and I'm gonna talk about this one. This is one I definitely want to focus on. Master Knight says, here's one I dislike in general, fake difficulty. One was very good. Now, also think about why it is that you don't particularly like this one. So, I don't like love triangles. I don't like the whole kicked out of the hero's party. Then there's love knows no age. There are some very cute couples out there in the real world with ridiculous age gaps. I've met them. They're beautiful, fabulous people. In fiction, for whatever reason, it just falls apart. It becomes so creepy. Mimic says, I'm not like the other girls. Oh, yeah. That was a big one right there. And so fake character growth or character reversion. It ruins otherwise great characters and character arcs. That just had so much potential to be great. Yeah. Making out with your relatives? Oh, my. Smut in general. Yes. Yep. TV count. Think Sheldon's from My Life as a Teenager Robot. If you guys know who this character is, you'll know it's based on a wired romantic trope. Okay. My Life as a Teenage Robot. Oh boy. Okay, I'll give you guys a little bit more of a moment to type out some of those tropes that you're just all like, no. I do not like this. Again, these are redeeming the tropes that you hate. I want your most hated tropes. You lied to me in part ways trope. Ooh. I don't see a lot of people hating on that one, but I can understand why. Yep, because that is so lazily used, Hannah. That is a trope that I like, but it is so poorly utilized. The hero telling the villain, it's not too late for you to see the error of your ways and become a better person, even though he murdered several people and did many horrible things. Yes, thank you. Okay, ISO, along with that, this is one of the reasons why I despise Katadora from She-Ra. I hate that ship. I hate that conclusion because Catra did nothing to really redeem herself. She's horrible in the beginning. She is mostly horrible at the end. And it sickens me to see all the people who defend it saying it's okay if she's still a horrible person. Like, no, I once read an entire article of a guy saying, I'm so happy that my boyfriend loves me for the horrible, abusive person I am. And I'm like, I'm just dying inside. Ugh. The Matter Lad is here. Hello, chat. I've arrived. ISO says miscommunication because it's lazy and annoying. It can be when it's poorly written. I do like the miscommunication trope. I really, really do. But it gets handled so poorly so many times. And it says, I'm bored of that trope. Think stalker love interest. Yep. The laughed in the end. The liar revealed. Okay. Interesting. I want to know. I'm looking forward to what your reasoning for hating that. I'm Omega. Mimic the incest trope, especially in anime. Gross. Mimic, that is one of the few tropes. That is genuinely bad and cannot be redeemed. There is no reason other than if you are writing a story based on actual history of people like the Habsburgs, you should not be using that trope. It is so demented. I am not a fan of it, and really no one should be a fan of it. Ugh. Yes, there are some tropes that cannot be redeemed. But most of the ones that we hate actually can be. So we've got a good list of hated tropes right here. This is where I want you guys to kind of cut loose a little bit. Your most hated tropes. I want you to give me a quick blurb for each trope that you hate, why you hate it. Marilad, what are we talking about? We were talking about redeeming hated tropes. There's tropes that we hate. The thing, though, is that tropes in and of themselves aren't bad. So we want to have a look at the tropes that we really hate, and we want to see if there's a way that they can possibly be redeemed. That is our challenge tonight, or at least one of our 2 challenges tonight. So let me go with. I will lead by example. The love triangle. Why do I hate this thing so much? I hate it because the author has already predetermined who will get together, and the other person is simply eye candy. It's simply there as eye candy, and to get the audience riled up. It is cheap. As way it is basically cheap drama, and it is a cheap way of getting people invested in a story. And here's the thing: many times, the person who is predetermined to lose is actually the better partner for the protagonist to get together with. That's the way it usually is in a love triangle. So often, the MC does not end up with the person who is genuinely better. And that's one of the other reasons why I'm so frustrated with love triangles. Because it's cheap. It's a cheap way to create tension. Ugh. I says Mary Sue's, of course. I hate Mary Sue's because it's a weak foundation to base a character off of, and nobody ever redeems Mary Sue's by giving them any form of meaningful growth, and it can easily ruin the story. Yes, and here's the thing: is that the moment that you give a Mary Sue any sort of character development, they cease to be a Mary Sue. It's kind of funny. There is no way to redeem that trope, because the moment that you attempt to actually work on it, you immediately make it something else. You can have Mary Sue's within a story, maybe as like a punching bag for other characters or for the audience to laugh at, but that's more of a meta commentary, which is in and of itself a trope. And Hannah says, "Oh yeah, I see a lot of bad romance tropes." Yes, and that's the thing, is that I think the romance genre really is kind of what inspired a lot of the hatred around certain tropes, and why people hate tropes in general, just by realizing that every story has tropes and that they need tropes in order to function. Yeah, they can easily ruin an entire story because the MC is stupidly powerful, special, and perfect creature. Exactly. The peeping Tom is a really bad trope because some stalkers because some people stalk their crushes. Yes. Yeah, the peeping Tom one. So we'll get into that because at face value, it's a bad character archetype to use. It's a bad trope. It's a bad setup. It depends, though, on what you do with it afterwards. But yeah, it's pretty uncomfortable. TV count, I hate the romantic stalker because if it's the lead character, they learn nothing, and worse, is even rewarded with the love of their life in the end. Oh yeah, the romantic stalker is definitely the kind of trope that is just like, this is so uncomfortable. No, I absolutely get what you're talking about there. It's always the man looking at women taking off their clothes. Yep. Mimic certain harem tropes. Just pick one. Damn it. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Oh boy, riding a harem. Actually, Mimic. I've got a story that I will share for how I think a harem trope can be wonderfully used, but we're not yet there. I'm already going to quickly write a note for myself. There we are. Okay. Then Iso says, I hate the hero redeeming the villain because a villain should always have a solid reason for being a villain. And if they can be swayed by a few petty words after everything, it's a weak character. It's a weak character, completely plot dependent, and their actions are meaningless, and therefore the story is meaningless. Yeah. And that I said that actually comes around to my personal rule of thumb that a villain can be redeemed, but that a villain is only redeemed by the amount of effort, by an equal amount of effort into being a good guy as they put into being a villain. That is my personal formula. I think that you can redeem a villain if they put in as much work as they did to be a villain, which, to Matterlad, the counter argument is Zuko. This is why Zuko is such a great antagonist. Because we get one season of him being mostly bad. He does some good things in season 1, but he's mostly a bad guy. Season 2, he is largely conflicted and learning. Season 3, he's mostly a good guy who does some bad things. And it balances out. Like, sure, you can nitpick and say that maybe we see more of him being a villain than being a hero, but Zuko's journey is far more than just simply he's told a few words and then he becomes better, which is, I think, what Iso is harping on, that just a conversation in the final fight can sway the villain to be a good guy. Zuko becomes a good guy because of a long character arc that he goes on. And so, as far as what Iso is complaining about, that is the cure. The cure to swaying the villain and redeeming the villain is putting in the work to redeem that character. Marla, the trope of way overdoing how many teenagers make my blood boil. A big example of this is Ruby Gilman, Teenage Kraken. Most of the teenagers are just incredibly fruity and extra. Why do that? So just basically, just going way overboard. And you're like, this is a caricature, not a character. Yeah. Where I guess the trope right there would be that their personality is their quirk, rather than their quirk being a trait of their personality. TV account. I think it was supposed to be funny, but it goes from funny to creepy pretty quickly. Yes, it does. The only harem I find acceptable is Camille's harem anyway. Well, thank you, Mimic. I says, I remember another one. Characters that are written to be arrogant and cocky and obviously stupidly evil, just for the sake of satisfying the audience when they get beat. Colin Craft, you're back. What did you miss? We are talking about redeeming your most hated tropes. Now then, here's really what inspired me to do this. So, to talk about this particular topic, or at least to pitch it for you guys to consider as far as like most hated tropes. So, one of the ones I hate, I just really, really hate. I got kicked out of the hero's party. This is why I hate this trope. It is cheap, emotional manipulation. Because our hearts go out to people who fall in hard times and who are betrayed. So like it's a big deal, but it's cheap emotional manipulation because it is usually used at the beginning of the story. What's more is that the hero is cast as the ultimate good guy who never did anything wrong, and the hero is an idiot. Usually so much so that you wonder, how on earth did this guy or this gal ever become the hero? They are literally too dumb to function. How does this work? Make it make sense. Gah! Oh, I hate how overdone this trope is in anime and manga. I got kicked out of the hero's party. Oh, woe is me. They said I was so weak, but really I'm OP. I'm a Mary Sue or Gary Stu all the way. And now I'm going to get my harem. And I'm going to show up the hero. And the hero is always stupid to begin with. And everyone's going to validate me. Oh, I hate this trope and what people do with it. Because it's so lazy. It's so lazy because immediately you feel for the character, you feel for the main character because they got kicked out, they got betrayed. Oh, it's so bad. and then it's used as the grounds to facilitate every other annoying trope. It's so frustrating. Malice says, I find it annoying when movies overuse pop culture references. Yeah, good point right there. I says, that one also plays into mine. Usually the hero is somewhat respectable and the character gets along with the hero, and then he gets kicked out of the party and is suddenly a snide, arrogant prick. Yeah, exactly. Conquest says, most hated trope, I think, are trying too hard to subvert expectations. Yes, that is basically become a trope now. I will subvert your expectations. And they create an entire scene just to show that they subverted your expectations, rather than, like, for instance, in the Gaslight District, we just went over this, how the heist goes wrong not because of the newbie, but because of the veteran thief being Ken. And that subverts your expectations. And the show doesn't call into attention that Ken screwed up. It calls into attention the similarities between Ken and Mel, which makes you emotionally attached to what's happening in that scene. And if you're paying attention, you realize that your expectations have just been subverted. And it casts that scene into a different light. That is the proper use of expectation subversion. That is the right way to do it. Iso says, you're such a weak loser. You don't deserve to be in a party with me. We don't need you. Sure, you helped us, but we hate you now. Oh, yes, I hate it so much. Concrest says, and ragging on a trope that has been so subverted that pretty much nobody nowadays has seen it played straight. Yeah, there are tropes like that, where actually we know more about the subversion to the trope than the actual original trope that birthed it. Go figure. Now it says, I don't like it when really powerful villain isn't actually a threat in the final fight. Example, I love Murder Drones, but the final fight was really unsatisfying because of the power of, I'd win. Yeah, we definitely needed to see more of Uzi actually practicing with her powers to make sense of how she beats the Absolute Solver. It makes sense why the Absolute Solver toys with them, because it's sadistic, which facilitates its own defeat. That makes sense. But we don't understand enough of its power or how Uzi uses it to really make sense of that particular point at the end of the fight. TV Cam, oh yeah, those trying too hard to subvert expectations, it kind of ends up making so confusing. Think the Winter Maiden from Ruby. Thank you. Yeah, the whole Winter Maiden shtick with killing Penny again, that was so dumb. Bringing Penny back just to kill her again, that was so dumb. Winter is a way better character without magic, because her limitations in how she tries to defend her people and save her family are what make her a phenomenal hero. And Penny was the goodness that the show needed. By killing the goodness yet again, that was basically Miles and Carrie being like, yeah, we're gonna do our own thing now. I honestly, like, they need to show me that Monty Ohm told them to kill Penny again to convince me that Monty wanted that. Because I do not believe in any way that Monty intended for that to happen, because Penny coming back is meant to be foreshadowing for the fact that Pyrrha is coming back. Ugh, it's just so frustrating. I says, I also hate plot romance. The only reason these two characters are romantically involved is because the plot says, I like you two together, so now you're together now. Exactly. Comic fun fact, any manga made fun of girl running with a toast on her mouth so much that Sailor Moon has made fun of it. Usagi's dad then does it, if I remember it right. That's funny. All right. So we've had the chance to air out some of these tropes and why we hate them. Why they're so bad. Well, guess what, everyone? I want you to now take that trope and we're going to redeem it. Oh, yeah. So, can we fix these tropes? The incest one? No. There's no fixing it. That's just wrong. I'm sorry. You can't utilize that one well. Unless you're writing a historical fiction or something like that. No. But for most of these other tropes, we can. First, so this is my formula for redeeming horrible tropes. First, we need to consider the purpose behind each trope. What does it bring to the table? How is it supposed to enhance and tell the story? So that's the first thing we need to do. We need to understand, what does this trope do? Second, we need to identify how it's been misused. And thirdly, we need to come up with a creative solution. So this is where things actually start getting fun. But let me quickly catch up with what you guys wrote right here. The Matter Lad. Now I go to Gravity Falls. Bill Cipher is a menace that only lost due to his own hubris. But the rest, he was a threat. That's how you do a powerful villain. Make them a huge threat. So with Bill Cipher is such an interesting character because, yes, it is absolutely his hubris that defeats him. And that's kind of the point, is that at the end, there was no other way to defeat him than through tricking him. And here's actually kind of the funny thing. This right here, this should actually tell you something about Bill Cipher. Bill Cipher spent so much time around Ford, he should have known the difference between Ford and Stan. The difference is that Bill never cared about Ford. He never got to know him well enough to actually tell when it wasn't him. As a result, Stan could trick Bill. And so what that says is that while Bill was absolutely all powerful, one of the things that we see throughout Gravity Falls is that Bill Cipher continuously reads people wrong. He reads Dipper wrong in the first season. He reads Gideon wrong later on in the show. And he misunderstands Mabel. He thought he beat Mabel. And in the end, Mabel could bring down Mabelland with the help of everyone else, which Bill thought was impossible. Bill always misreads people because he always thinks so little of them. So he never gets to actually know them or care about them in any kind of way. And that is his weakness. It's subtle and it's fantastic. So when you combine that then with his hubris, it's easy to realize why he fell to Stan and Ford's switcheroo. That is what makes it good writing. But yes, if Bill had shown himself to be even more powerful and more manipulative and that he was always right, then that switcheroo would have absolutely have been a cop-out. Let's see here. Commoncraft. I remember my confusion upon finding out Ruby has a main team with 4 color-coded girls, yet apparently the maidens can only Sorry. I remember my confusion upon finding out Ruby has a main team with 4 color-coded girls, yet apparently the maidens, which can only GI to girls, go to girls, yet Team Ruby will never become maidens, apparently. Yeah, that's disappointing to see. Mimic says, I am an incredibly powerful and strong character, badass even, that even gives me an excuse to be an ass to everyone else, not me, including my love interest, whom still ends up with me despite treating them like crap. Yes. Okay. So, gotta take a drink of water right here. Okay, so ISO is already taking this. I guess you could redeem the hero. Redeem the villain by not putting it directly at the end and not making the villain immediately see the error of their ways, and instead actually think. The villain would need to take time to think about the hero's actually meaningful argument, and he needs to be able to introspect enough to understand that maybe the hero could be right. The villain would need his whole motive questioned, and he would need to understand that his own actions went against the reason that he had his goals in the first place. Bingo. ISO got it. That is correct. It's not a bad... Here's the thing. At its face value, it's not a bad trope. The problem is that it's normally put at the end of the story, where the villain doesn't have time to be introspective. But if you did it earlier on, the villain could be introspective, and you could still have that fight at the end where the villain is like, no, it will work, and then they're presented with the chance that they could win. But by this time, they've come to realize that maybe winning isn't actually what they want. Maybe that will do more harm to them than good, and that the hero is right. Dang it, the hero's right. And that would make sense by that point because you've gotten to see the adventure that the villain went on, and you can still have that epic climax at the end and feel the reward for the villain turning. It can be done. It just requires way more work and time. Master Knight DH says, about the great villain in my story, I can point out that the great villain is intent on exploiting selfishness all over the place and believes, like so many, that good guys are idiots. All right. Now then, let me take the whole I got kicked out of the hero party. So, kicked out of the hero's party. The reason for this trope existing is that it establishes very clearly our hero and villain. It turns on its head your expectations for what a hero is, allowing you to tell a nuanced story. And I'd also add to this, furthermore, it gives the hero a very clear goal for what they will do. Will they seek revenge or forgiveness? Say forgiveness versus revenge. And when you approach it from that perspective, the whole getting kicked out of the hero's party is doing a lot of weightlifting. It really is. So it's not a bad trope, but the reason why it's so misused is because, like I said, it's cheap, it's lazy. Because it's just utilized very quickly at the beginning of the story before we even get to know who these characters are. It's used to very quickly say, here's our hero, and then here's our villain. Like the hero, boom, they're going to go on. And it's normally accompanied by really lazily used tropes of the guy gets the harem, OP character, so on and so forth, Gary Sue, Mary Sue, nonsense. And as a result, what could be an interesting setup is absolutely destroyed. So you need to properly use this trope, and you need to give it some time to gestate. You need to give it some time for us to get to know who these characters are before you pull the switcheroo, before you get kicked out of the hero's party. And then follow it up with actual interesting character development and not a bunch of lazy tropes. ISO says the hero should care for his party and do whatever it takes to look after those who follow him, even if it means kicking them from the party. There is a story that actually does that, which is pretty neat, about the heroes realizing, you know what, this person will actually do way better if they're not in our party, and they let the hero loose, and then he becomes super awesome. And there's no ill will. That was a nice take on the story. T account says romantic stalker. Oh yeah, you know what? We're gonna talk about that one. Nick says I got kicked out of the hero party. Pfft, fine, I'll create my own hero party then. We'll be less stuck up and more accepting of the other unique types of heroes. Now it says how to fix powerful villain going down easy, losing to hubris and not taking it seriously. Villain losing control of everything and then significant power down. Don't make them easily go down to begin with. Yes, make it a struggle. Make it a struggle. Common Craft says, one fanfic I'm following recently revealed the reason the main heroine was kept out of a group to save the world was that they thought that she was too good and young of a person to do what must be done. Maybe the idea can be applied to the whole kicked out of the hero's party. It can be. And you see, that right there is an interesting twist. And then Master DH says, ISO, the hero can be arrogant at the start. If there's self-reflection, that's something that they can get going. Exactly. TV account says, as far as the romantic stalker, it's meant for laughs, nothing more. It's meant to show a lovesick character. Yes. And now then, that one normally gets used poorly because, as you'll probably see, Iso says, listen, my friend, you are too weak. I don't want anything bad to happen to you. You're my friend, and I won't allow you to go on this suicide mission. I'm sorry. Yeah, and then the main character can feel very conflicted and be like, but no, I care about you. I need to be there. I don't want to abandon you, my friend. And then goes on a journey of self-discovery and self-improvement to become the hero that the party needs. Now then, as far as like getting kicked out of the hero's party goes, there's an anime that's right now going on called The Two Perfect Saint. That is such an enjoyable show. I thought I was going to hate it because it has the whole I got kicked out of the hero's party. And it's made even worse because her fiance dumps her and then sells her effectively as a slave to another kingdom. And I'm just like, I was rolling my eyes constantly, like, oh, this is going to be so stupid. And oh my gosh, she's a Mary Sue. She's so powerful. It has ended up being so far a really good story because you find out the reason why she's so OP is not because she was just always magically gifted that way. She ended up becoming OP because she was trying to earn people's love by doing what she thought they wanted. And her family manipulated that and got her to become so powerful to train in magic and the likes because they wanted to use her as a pawn for their own gain by playing off of different nobles. And so her skill is earned. It's an earned skill. And she's been used as a pawn. She has a very beautiful younger sister that her fiance is interested in, which is why she gets cut loose. And then when she is sold off to the other kingdom, rather than being treated as a slave, she's immediately accepted as a free person. And so as a result, like a lot of like the weird slave trope goes out the window. And the setup for I got kicked out of the hero's party effectively makes way more sense because of all of the abuse this character has gone on. And her OP ability comes from actually having put in the effort. And we see that repeatedly again and again and again, the effort that she goes through to maintain her level of skill. And how that was drilled into her by manipulative, abusive family and rulers. So her setup that whole setup ends up working out well because the legwork is put in to explain why she is the way that she is. And the rest of the story from that point onwards is how she begins to realize that she can be a real hero and how good people end up supporting her. And then the fun twist to this, what makes you really like is how, yes, her fiance, the quote unquote hero, is just an absolute stupid dirtbag. And what I love about how the show utilizes that aspect of the trope is that her younger sister realizes this really, really quickly and is like, you know what? I'm going to get revenge. And it's going to be sweet. It's going to be sweet. I'm going to destroy you. So I'm going to go along with everything. And at your highest moment, I'm going to take you down. And so it's not even the MC who's thinking of revenge. It's her sister. And I love the way that that's juggled. Gotta take a drink of water. There goes my voice. All right, so I love what you guys are coming up with here in the chat. Comic says one thing I wanted to try was to go at the trope of isekai into a game and can do better than the natives by playing into how insane and nonsensical optimization and speedrunning can be, but keep the MC not too strong and also establish things the MC doesn't know at the beginning of the story or the world. Yeah. You can do that. There are ways of balancing that kind of a trope. I don't mind the idea actually of characters getting isekai'd. Just don't make them OP right off the bat. It's so annoying. And the whole video game setup isn't bad, but it's been so overused, and it's normally used really stupidly. Like people who only know a handful of things about a video game. Like I actually do want to write one of my own stories of a person getting isekai'd into a video game, but I don't want to write it until I've done more research into how that would act, into how a video game of the kind that I'm thinking of would actually work. So that way I can actually use a real video game with its strengths and weaknesses and not just be like, you're an OP character. Yeah, because that's just dumb. Mallet says, I remember another trope, OP main character, One Punch Man, absolutely perfect, though. And that's the thing. Overpowered characters are not bad characters. Anyone who says that is not thinking clearly. Because overpowered doesn't mean squat if that person can still go through a character journey. If they still have difficulties, challenges that they can't punch or think their way through. Challenges are what makes a character. And Saitama being able to kill anything in one punch does not matter when he's depressed, when he's friendless, when he's jobless. None of that matters. The guy needs to get a grip of his reality. He needs to find real friends. He needs to get a job. He needs to take care of himself. And only then does he start finding happiness. He got his wish of being overpowered, but didn't give him what he really wanted. And that's beautiful storytelling right there. And there's so many other great overpowered characters that have been written. There are some amazing stories of Superman. Though he's a paragon and OP, there are some really good Superman stories written where he's confronted with some major challenges and has to overcome them in fantastic ways. Randall Thor from The Wheel of Time is super OP. He is so overpowered. But he's a character who still goes through such intense suffering, trauma, and challenges that it makes him feel realistic and relatable. So, overpowered characters being good characters are actually all over the place. It's just that too many times people make overpowered characters lazily because they think more about the power rather than the character wielding those powers. That, I think, is very important. That's one of the reasons why when I listen to Shad from Shadiversity talk about how much he likes Superman, he's always talking about the powers of Superman rather than what Superman actually does with those powers, and how Superman has to have such a strong ethical code to never break and utilize those powers for something wicked or selfish. That's what makes him so good. So it's not about the power. The power is interesting, but it's about the character that wields that power that makes an OP character interesting. If they don't have a character arc, if they have no real personality, then an OP character will always fall flat. Comcast says, what was the name of the story you are talking about again? Sorry, I didn't hear it right away. The story that I was talking about, Common Craft, is The Too Perfect Saint. And I'll put it in right here. The Too Perfect Saint. The anime. All right. Oh, Anthony Dixon's here. Great to have you here, Anthony. Man, you guys have gotten so much stuff going on here, but I love it. ISO says to Master Knight, dang, this guy's better than me. I don't want to be weak. I'm the leader of this party. I can't be anything less than the strongest. I have to get rid of this guy. Oh, I just remembered, it says Marilad, another trope, OP main character. Yep. TV account, misuse of the trope. Flanderization, yep, it becomes less funny and more creepy over time. Completely ruin the character if they are the lead. Becomes a prominent part in every episode. Yeah. The peeping Tom, the lucky Letcher, the accidental boob grab. Too much of that. ISO says, and then, oh man, this guy was kind of carrying our party. And because I got rid of him, I endangered the whole party. And it was all my fault. What do I do about this? Okay, Mimic says, the romantic creepy stalker solved. Gather as much info on the creep as you can. Tell your family and friends about them so they'll be cautious. Call the police and give them info you have. Yes. Make sure they work swiftly and not let the romantic stalker know that you're catching on to them. Now, Mimic, that is the smart way to go about it. However, there is a really fantastic story about a yandere who falls in love with another yandere who is yandereng after another person. That is so much fun to read. and that's where I like it, because the creepy stalker is absolutely getting a taste of her own medicine as she's stalking the guy that she likes, because she's getting stalked by a delinquent kid at school. And it's just their antics are so over the top as these two yandere are going after each other. And the thing is, this is that everything that she wants to do to him, because a yandere will always react, or usually react very negatively and violently towards anyone who dares to interfere in their love. The problem is this: is that a yandere who receives any recognition from the person they like, even if it's negative, will interpret it as lovey-dovey. So you have a yandere who's just feeding their yandere stalkers ambitions. It's just this continuous cycle of horrible. It's like a train wreck that you can't look away from, and that's the whole purpose. Another trope: casting the Rock in a jungle movie. Yes. TV Ken says, solution: give the stalker a character arc. Earlier about letting go of the object of interest and learning about boundaries. Depending on the story, don't reward them with the love interest right away or have them be friends at first. Yes, I like that. You know what? You can have a creep in a story and redeem the creep. That's a viable choice. It can be done. And when it's done well, it's actually really, really awesome and heartwarming. Like, it can be done. Let's see here. Anthony Dixon says, solution: give each main character an equal opportunity to fight. Don't make your only solo duet trio characters all of the spotlight. Yes. Conquest says, Superman is a Superman. Super in all aspects, can be including moral fiber. When the saints go marching in. Oh, when the saints go marching in. Oh, how I want to be in that number when the cats come marching in. Anthony says, misused trope: parallel couples. When you write a couple that is similar to another couple in the same story and don't follow through, it becomes an abandoned romance. Yes, yes, yes. Amen. Do not abandon romances. If you don't want to follow through with it, then dismantle it within the story, or don't have it in there at all. Milik says, yes, Yandere x Yandere, the best and wildest of tropes. Comic says, there's a comic by Merriweather, if I remember it right, that's about two yanderes going at each other. From a little I read a while ago, at least one bystander died already. Oh my gosh. Woo! I saw this one manga of a masochist who entered a relationship with a yandere, and it was weirdly wholesome. Yes. Yeah. Depending on how you write the characters, it can work. Don't remember the name of the manga. I mean, the masochist likes being abused, and the yandere is abusive, but the guy likes it. So I mean, you do you, man. Yeah, it's absolutely not healthy, yet I guess it will work for some of the characters. Now then, let me grab up the name of this particular story right here. So there is a manga which is actually getting an anime adaptation later this year, which uses the harem trope fantastically. So this is a great example of a harem trope used right. It is, and I'll probably butcher this because the only other language other than English I can speak apparently is German. Kizetsu Yusha to Ansatsui Hime. Sorry for butchering it, but there you have it. This one is a hilarious and well done use of the harem trope. And the reason why that is so the main character, who's a bland protagonist. Oh, bland protagonists are also a horrible character archetype, horrible character trope, or a horrible trope to use. It is so good because you have this bland protagonist who's meant to be the OP hero, and everyone in his harem is trying to kill him. Every girl who is pretending to like him is in his harem to get close enough to him to murder him. The problem is that he's so OP that they all have a really, really hard time killing him. And the way that they keep on covering us, because you'd be like, well, shouldn't this guy realize that they're all these girls are trying to murder him? There's another trope that they use of the overly innocent hero or protagonist, where the protagonist, if anything lovey-dovey, even slightly lewd happens, they immediately like have a nosebleed and pass out. So like hand holding, nosebleed, pass out. So the girls all the girls who are trying to murder the hero realize this, and so each time that they fail to assassinate him, they like hold his hand, kiss his cheek, blow in his ear, or wink at him, and then his brain fries and he passes out. And then he resets. He's like, "What just happened?" They're all like, "Oh, hero! Oh man, you such weak constitution." And so he's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so weak." And so the OP hero thinks he's really weak because he keeps passing out, and he keeps passing out because he's so susceptible to anything even slightly lewd, and his whole harem is trying to murder him. It is a fantastic twist on every single lazy, dumb trope that we've come to expect in a harem story. And I am absolutely here for it. Nick says that's why ReZero low key. That's why ReZero is low key. Oh, ReZero, such a good story. Then let's see here. Anthony Dixon says solutions: write enough characters so that they can interact with one another. That way, romances can be easily sculpted at a slow burn way. It also allows a slow, healthy process of dismantling. I like that solution, Anthony. I really like that, and more people should put that to use. Meg says, I wonder if there's been a trope of a story of a tsundere character that has a yandere-like tendencies, habits, but it's not like I murdered all those people because I love you or anything. Humph. I so found it. My girlfriend gives me goosebumps. Oh, I have heard of that one. Garcraft says this plot went very different from how I imagined it would go. First idea of how to potentially redeem the harem trope was to show the effort of how to make the harem realistically work. That's what I thought of. You can also go that route, which is the Wheel of Time route. How Rand al'Thor develops his own relationships with Elaine, with Min, and with Aviendha. How he ends up genuinely falling in love with all three women, and how they fall in love with him, and then how they come to reconciliate the fact that they all love each other, and how you move on from there. And that's a really slow burn. And that's the more realistic way of doing a harem story. The one that I was pitching right there was just more like making fun of it. And it works out really, really well. Because, yeah, a lot of harem setups don't really work out well. Now then, I'm going to pitch to you guys another way that you could write a harem, and actually do something with it that could be pretty interesting. And I'm going to have to base this off of real life experience. So there was a time back when I was in college, there was a brief stint where people were like, Lars has a harem. I did not have a harem. I did not. I was friends with a load of girls who were all friends with each other. And I was the safe guy that they could invite on over and that they could have fun with and everything. And what people outside of that friend dynamic thought was that Lars was just getting all these girls, and that was not right. And that led to some issues way later on down the road. And unfortunately, that friend group shattered in a very unpleasant way for a variety of reasons. But for a time, there was, to the outside observer, this harem dynamic. Lars with like 6-7 different girls. Oh my gosh. And they all seemed to be very enamored with him. No, we were all just friends. And it was actually the when romance started creeping in that things really fell apart fast. So you can write a harem dynamic where to an outside observer, that's what it looks like. one girl with all the hot guys, or one guy with all the hot girls. But when you actually get to know those characters, you realize they're all just friends, and that's just the way it sometimes goes. And that's happened to plenty of people, not just to me. The thing is that those dynamics end up in real life falling apart really quickly, usually, the moment that someone does begin developing feelings. Because there's kind of this unspoken arrangement of, we're all going to be together like this because we get along so well as friends. And the moment that romance starts entering into that, what if I liked you, but you end up liking someone else? Well, no, this doesn't work anymore. And so people then go their separate ways. That's a more realistic take on a harem. Unless, of course, you again write a historical fiction about real life harems. I can point to an excellent example being the Apothecary Diaries. Malad says, how to fix OPMC. Even more OP antagonist. Example, Dragon Ball Z. You can go that route and it works, but then it's always about level up, level up, level up, level up. And that gets very derivative and formulaic really fast if it goes on for too long. Now, Comicraft says, isn't that the ending in the epilogue comics of Helltaker? The Helltaker wanted a demon girl harem, got a bunch of roommates instead. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, Helltaker, just take one and commit. Take one and commit. It's all about that commitment. See, back in the day when Netflix and chill was a popular saying, I said, I don't want Netflix and chill. I want Hulu and commitment. And you guys can take that to the bank. Girl, I don't want Netflix and chill. I want Hulu and commitment. Hulu and commitment. So, there you guys have it. That right there is my formula for redeeming hated tropes. There are some tropes out there that, again, you can't really fix, such as the incest trope. That's one that I'm like, oh no. There are some tropes that are highly questionable, such as love knows no age. You really need to be sensitive about that one. It can work, but it can really quickly blow up in your face. Harem is a tricky one. Like, you know what you're getting into when you get a harem story, and there's people who like those tropes. Fine, they can enjoy them and they can enjoy those stories. For other people who don't like that, there's plenty of other stories that they can get into. But the unfortunate thing is that harems just get used. It's so derivative, it's uncreative, and it's more about wish fulfillment than character development. That's one of the biggest problems, because there are actually some really, really good harem-esque stories with great character development. I can point to stuff such as Recreator, which has a harem element to it, but has brilliant character development, so you easily ignore it. Fruits Basket, stuff like that. And again, Wheel of Time. Wheel of Time is my go-to example for how to do a harem right. Now it says, counter argument. New hair color from Power Up. Go. Brrr. Yes, indeed. Mimic, wow, I never knew you were a real-life anime protagonist, Mr. Lars. You know what? When I tell my story, when I tell my life story to people, that's kind of how it comes across sometimes. Comcast says, Lore Olympus. I wanted to look into it to judge it myself, but the insistence of the story to hammer that Hades is 500 while Persephone is 16 and sheltered, has a power to stay 16 forever. I didn't even know that about Lore Olympus. Holy cow. Okay, we need to pressure Camille, and I know you normally don't want to pressure people to do stuff, but Camille said that she wanted to do an in-depth dive into the good, bad, and ugly of Lore Olympus. And that's been something that she's kind of had on the back burner for like 2 years now. I think that we should try to get some excitement going and hopefully get her back into doing that, because I really want to know her findings. Isis says a child is betrothed to a nobleman and he won't touch her until she's old enough to, out of respect for her age. I accidentally posted that before the comment was finished. Yikes. But no, we get there right there. Yeah, And you know what? That's not a bad take in and of itself as well. Like there are stories that have done that, and I'm fine. Like I'm fine with that. Again, depending on the context of the story, it can work. Like age, like love knows no age or no difference in age. Uh, it can work. It can work if you are, again, very respectful to your characters, respectful of the world that you've created, and that you make it make sense. The whole, like, if you have soulmates across differences of age, that can get really tricky and nasty, like the moment that people start thinking about it. So that's one of those things where it's like no love at first sight right there. Do your work. And here's actually something. I like the trope of love at first sight. In my book, Knights of Halley Cruise, I use it. The thing though is that it's a trope that embraces laziness, because most people then don't try to develop the relationship beyond that. It's always about how are we going to get together now that we know that we love each other. When I wrote, as I've been writing the series of The Legend of the Ten Lords, because I'm still working on books 4, 5, and 6, the relationship between Lagerblad and Armina, which begins with love at first sight, Lagerblad doesn't realize that he loves her at first, but that's what's happening, and Armina absolutely hates him. And so there's miscommunication, and there's then opportunity for character development and for relationship development. And those two getting together takes a long time. And I think that's kind of the fun of doing love at first sight, is that it can be messy getting there. And then when they actually do get together, I develop their relationship beyond that. And so while I use a trope that some people might not like, the journey that these characters goes on is one that should still be strong enough to stand, even with that trope. Let's see here. Mimic says the anime Clanad is a great example of a good, well-written harem. It's hardly even a harem at all, just a guy who happens to have a bunch of female friends whom they all respect and get along with. Yay! Great! There's a comic I was meaning to read. The plot was that a princess gets saved, prince gets cursed into a child. Their pseudo-parental arrangement is actually healthier due to how damaged they were. Oh, wow. I feel like I've read that like a while back. It's not coming to me. Nick says the teacher X student trope. That trope alone can literally go a ton of different ways, which is already unsettling in of itself. Yeah, that's a trope. That's a trope to which I say there's almost no good way to take it unless you develop a healthy relationship between them, that when they're no longer teacher and student and as consenting adults, they then start developing romantic feelings for each other, then it can work. But yeah, especially as someone who was a teacher, that just gives me all the icky feelings. I'm not a fan of it. And here's the thing, I've even read a few number of stories that have that dynamic. And it's just, it's usually meant to set up a smut scene. That's what it's all about. It's all about that smut. So here's your guys' homework for this one right here. Upon using the discussions that we've had, and you guys have already written tons of great stuff, I want you to think about this in terms of your own stories. What will you do to try and redeem your most hated tropes? How could you use your own story as a platform for redeeming one of your most hated tropes? Like, for instance, say like I've brought up how the harem trope can really grate on me. I'm not going to reveal yet because it'd be massive spoilers for some of my stories, but I do have a harem. I do have a harem trope. Or I do have the use of the harem trope in one of my stories, and I'm going to try to take that trope that I'm not usually a fan of and use it within my own stories and try to make it good. Let's see it. We'll have to see if I can succeed, because just because you have the goal and the plan to redeem a hated trope, the execution counts as well. A great plan does not a great story make. Mallet says, teacher, 31 years old, student also 31 years old, but way too incompetent and immature to pass the grade. Okay. Okay, that's like that. That's like that Adam Sandler movie. Not Happy Gilmore. What's the one where he has to go back to school? It's like that. Okay, that is acceptable. That is an acceptable use of the trope. Okay, so that was talking about redeeming tropes, redeeming our most hated tropes. Because I said we would get to this one, and we will get to it. Let's talk about puzzle encounters. I've already done a video about this, and I kind of wanted to follow up with it, especially in terms of creating a puzzle encounter. My videos talked about why those puzzle encounters can be good for your stories and how you can have that reflected in the puzzle encounter. But I do want to talk about how you actually create these encounters. So that is where we will end tonight, is on this particular topic. Conker says, what about my idea of the student ex-teacher relationship? It says, I think one way it could work is that they were in a relationship before the teacher becomes a teacher and the student enters the teacher's class through bad luck. That is an interesting scenario. I have seen that done, I think, in 2 other stories before. It's an interesting, convoluted way of making that work, and it can kind of work. Again, it depends on the execution. Amega says maybe the hero having to lie to save their group, and the group lied to catches onto the lie immediately, only to force to assist in the lie because of outside circumstances. Interesting. I'm guessing this is again into relation to getting kicked out of the hero's party. Now let me know exactly what your solution is, but what problem you're solving with this proposal right here. All right, as I take another drink of water and get myself another cough drop, let me show you guys the video that I have prepared for talking about. Okay, the liar repealed. Okay, or revealed. Got it. All right. Okay, so here's my little introductory video to writing puzzle encounters.
Disgusting. I mean, we gotta play the bones to get out of here.
But be warned, the bridge is protected by an ancient gnomish trap. There is a precise formula we must follow so as not to trigger the mechanism. Starting from the center, use odd-numbered blocks only, moving forward with each step except for every 5th step, which must be a lateral move.
Stay here.
Except now lateral move after the 4th step, until we reach the 3.
Oh, I love that moment so much. All right, so that was that was the video that I put together to talk about puzzle encounters, because they're not just in Dungeons and Dragons, they are all throughout fiction and literature. However, if you know how to write a good puzzle encounter and the mechanics that can go into one and the reasons why it exists, then you can have some real fun with that, not only in your stories, but also in Dungeons and Dragons. So, for those of you who didn't watch the video earlier, please watch it. But what are they? What are puzzle encounters? Puzzle encounters are situations that require characters to work together in interesting ways to overcome situations and problems they cannot just muscle their way out of. Although this is a form of storytelling mostly done in video games and tabletop RPGs, the fact of the matter is that loads of books, shows, movies use these encounters as well. It's part of the reason why I showed off that collection of clips. They can involve puzzles, traps, combat, battles of wits, logic, history, science, physics, you name it. So you can use all kinds of things to create puzzles. Master Knight says, right, I can bring this up. Puzzle encounters could be used to help teach important mechanics in game design. Yes, absolutely. I think one of the most famous examples, or one of the most famous modern examples of this, would be stuff like Portal and the first Last of Us game. Now it says, in a great D&D puzzle, a door that is unlocked. Watch them do literally everything else but check the door. Yes. Now, why should we care? Puzzle encounters encourage teamwork and growth within an ensemble cast. They force the characters to confront weaknesses or to use every strength and skill at their disposal. At best, puzzle encounters help to give information about the world and facilitate character development. It's also a fun way to engage the audience by making them think of how they would overcome the same problems and puzzles. But if they're players in D&D, they are the ones who do have to solve it, so it's not a hypothetical. Comcraft says, my first attempt at a solo Vampire the Masquerade version 5 session I had through sheer chance manifested a big social puzzle encounter. Oh, you have to tell us about that one, Comcraft. Now, let's look at some puzzle encounters, and then we will start talking about the mechanics for some of your own. So the Goonies, the organ scene from the Goonies. So One-Eyed Willie's second to last trap is a grisly organ made of bones. If you play the wrong notes, the floor falls out from underneath you. If you play the right notes, the bridge door begins to descend, allowing you to crawl out of the trap room. This scene is made all the more intense by the fact that the Fratellis, the villains in the series, in the movie, man, I wish that there was a good show of the Goonies. Make it a prequel, not a sequel. The Fratellis are catching up on the kids, and Data has to go to fight them off while Andy has to play the bones. She's the only one who knows how to play the piano or the organ. And Mikey and Mouth notice the notes on the back of the map, but are otherwise powerless to help. And so a lot of stuff is happening in this scene. While this trap is absolutely over the top and ridiculous, there's no way this would actually work. This scene tells us a lot. Like, if you wonder, where did most of One-Eyed Willie's men go? They went into making this. He killed his own men to create a grisly organ. Now, the reason why he's got this, and this is actually really smart. The captain of a ship back in the day was expected to be a sophisticated gentleman. One-Eyed Willie knew how to play the organ, and chances are no one else on his crew knew how to play the organ. And so by creating this organ, any of his surviving crewmates who he kept alive to help him out with this work would be unable to kill him right away because he held the key to getting in and out, because he was the one who could play the organ. So, One-Eyed Willie, by creating an organ as a sophisticated gentleman of science and of the arts, he's the only one who could use this trap and not die. If any of his crew tried to betray him in the process of all his murders and disgusting stuff, they would be screwed without him because they wouldn't know how to play the organ. And so that is the reason for this particular trap. It's actually really, really intelligent, and it has bearings on real world history. What's neat about this scene is that it requires Andy, who's been kind of the damsel in distress throughout this movie, to now be the heroine by relying on a skill that she hasn't really paid much attention to. And there's a lot of mistakes that she makes, nearly killing everyone in the process, and everyone is there encouraging her. The group finally truly all comes together to support each other, in this second to last trap. So that's what makes this scene really, really awesome. The mechanics of which are, you have to know how to read music and you have to know how to play an organ. You have to know where the keys are all at. If you're like me and you don't know how to read music and you don't know how to play the piano or the organ, you are screwed. If I were in this situation, I would have to turn back around and just fight the Fratellis. Marilyn says, would the abandoned city in Minecraft count? You got to find a new way to maneuver while staying quiet to not wake the warden and get past that is another puzzle that you can't be brute forced. Marilyn, the answer is yes. That is a puzzle encounter. Mimic says, and some puzzles can intentionally or unintentionally even include some audience participants too. Yes, indeed. Indeed. And Mimic, funny you should bring that up because I have plans for something like that as well for a future story. Oh, we'll see how that goes. So The Goonies actually has a lot. The Goonies has a lot of really great puzzle encounter scenes. This one is maybe the best because of the situation the kids get caught in, how their strengths and their weaknesses are highlighted, how they have to work together as a team despite most of them not really being able to do much. And the mechanics and the purpose for it existing are very brutal. Holy cow. Now then, another one. When we just saw this one, Indiana Dungeon Dives. In one of the greatest opening scenes in cinema, we get to see Indiana beat traitors, save a friend, who also turns out to be a traitor, overcome puzzles, and use his muscle and every resource, including sand, to beat a variety of death traps and puzzles to steal a priceless gold statue, which is holding its cheeks. We learned so much about Indiana in one scene, and it refuses to let us go. Yes, if you're paying attention, that little thing, that little gold statue, is holding to its butt. Mm-hmm. Yep. Now then, what I really like about this this puzzle encounter is, excuse me, is its variety, and it makes sense. This little statuette is meant to be retrieved at some point. You don't have an accessible religious icon without there being some kind of way of retrieving it. However, you don't want anyone else to retrieve it if you can avoid it, and hence why you have the veritable gauntlet of death traps, from the blades that come out of the wall to the pit to the floor that shoots arrows at you if you step on the wrong tile, and then the boulder and the sliding door and everything else. Say Indiana is in for a very, very rough ride. And this is something that you can consider again for some of your own stories. Like, okay, let me get onto a proper train of thought that makes sense. When it comes to creating the environment for a puzzle encounter, it needs to make sense. It needs to exist for an actual reason. So, for instance, One-Eyed Willie creating the Organ of Bones is a way of making sure that he controls who goes in and out of the cavern, because he's the only one who knows how to play the organ, which means that his men are at his mercy, which is really sucky for them. So that's why this trap exists. And when it comes then to Indiana Jones, all of these traps exist to get revenge on anyone who would dare to steal this religious icon. There is a way of retrieving it or worshiping with it without activating all of the traps. You just have to know what to do. And so for like dungeon encounters or for tomb raiding within your stories or within your games, there needs to be a reason why this thing exists. Your characters might not know, but you as the storyteller need to know. This is why this is here. This is why the person didn't just simply seal up all of their goodies and made sure that no one could ever get through 20 feet of stone and cement. Because most people won't dig through 20 feet of stone and cement if they don't know that there's not a treasure on the other side. So you need to have a good reason for why this exists. And Indiana Jones is a little bit more loose about why this exists, other than that this is meant to be a scene to show off how cool Indiana is, how smart he is, how resourceful it is, how resourceful he is. But it is also complementary to all of the legends, myths, and wonders of, the booby-trapped tombs, which we know that there are a couple of booby-trapped tombs in South America and a couple of booby-trapped tombs over in Egypt and in China. So it's not unrealistic that something like this would exist. Comcraft says, when would be a good time for my story of the vampire social puzzle encounter? Comcraft, feel free to already start writing it out. Malad says, you put 3 doors in a room. 2 are mimics and 1 is correct, but the main party is too weak to fight the mimics, so they need to use the first level spell to discern what the real door is. That's pretty smart right there. I like that. And then, why are 2 mimics acting as doors? Who knows? You come up with that scenario. I can already think of a wizard with their tower making sure it's like, they will choose the wrong door and get eaten. Or that these mimics realize that that adventurers are going into this area to try to plunder it for treasure, and so they make themselves a part of the scenery and confuse people to have a chance to eat them. So already right there, just 2 examples of the world building reason for why they're there. The mechanic in that sense is pretty straightforward. And as you say, mimics are ambush predators. But why they are in there, that's kind of what you need to be able to set up. If you, for instance, were to just walk into a house and suddenly there's mimics there who are pretending to be closet doors, okay, fine. But why are mimics in this particular house? The characters may never figure out, but you as the author, you should probably have an idea for why that is. Hey, playing Ding Dong Ditch on the 3 doors help at all? Maybe. All right. Then my last example right here, the rooms tell all. So this is a guilty pleasure of mine, but the B-rated movie Escape Room is a fun one, as the characters are forced to confront their pasts in each room, which is full of traps, full of death traps, where their wits, their communication skills, and their past deeds are all put on full display. And this is a movie that rewards you for watching it a second time around, because each room goes after the past of each character and calls them out in some kind of way. It's pretty vicious. Ding dong, and my hand was bit off. Now then, I'll just say this. The mechanics for the movie Escape Room are a little bit ridiculous. Like the first time I watched it, I thought it was really awesome. Second time watching it, I appreciated the storytelling a whole lot more, but the rooms became way more ridiculous because the traps and the puzzles were so over the top. So I was like, yeah. And so this leads me to, how do we build a puzzle encounter? You need to make it make sense within the world of your story. You need to give it rules and a history. And keep it simple. There must be a real solution. Now, there are times when you can make it really complex, and ISO shared on our community tab an example of one of his stories where people get stuck in a liminal space full of puzzles and traps and tricks that are meant to be absolutely brutal to the people who fall into it. And you know what? That's absolutely okay. But the solutions must be easy for the reader to make sense of once they have all the important clues. That is important. You can have a really ridiculous puzzle, but it must make sense once you have everything that you need to solve it. If you do and it still doesn't make any sense, you've made the puzzle too complicated and you will lose your audience. Or if you're playing Dungeons & Dragons, you will lose your players. This is what I ran into during my famous / infamous mirror hall scene, or a puzzle where, in order to proceed, the players needed to reflect light from an artificial sun from one mirror to then hit a mirror that had an icon on it, and then match the mirror with that icon to a door with the corresponding icon. So you're bouncing the light around. So you have to see all the mirrors, you have to see all the icons on mirrors and doors, and then bounce the light and match everything up. It's a matching game. But it was so many moving parts that it took so long to figure out. So figuring out what's simple and what isn't, because I really enjoyed it and that made sense to me. Pass your puzzles by other people and see just how complicated or how simple they are before proceeding with some of them. And then the other thing is this: make your puzzle encounters meaningful to the characters who are engaging with them. Don't just simply make it about solving the puzzle. Make it about advancing the characters and the plot. It's like thinking about Goonies or Indiana Jones. All of those puzzle encounters are there to help reveal stuff about the characters and to help the audience to learn more, as well as advance the plot and the characters. Now, what you'll realize is that what I've laid out here gives you loads of creative freedom, which is good, because we want a variety of puzzles and fun. So, let's start getting into this. Let's take the time. Let's finish off the night by creating some puzzle encounters. So, my friend Kitty Mouse, who was on here for a live stream now months ago, should definitely try to get her back sometime because that was fun. Proposed a trap, a puzzle encounter trap, where characters are raiding a tomb or dungeon crawling, and they get into a hallway where boulders get dropped at random. Boom. And they start rolling or going for you to crush you. And you have to figure out the interval in order to get past these boulders, find the mechanism, and shut it all down. Pretty straightforward. Now, one of the things that we need to first consider is, why does this exist? Because if this is part of a tomb, then does this exist not just simply to keep people out, but because they actually wanted people to get into the tomb? There are some instances where people are expected to go and visit their dead ancestors. So maybe that's the case. And maybe, yeah, sure, this is obviously a great deterrent to anyone who's trying to rob the tomb. But the real heir to the treasure will have heard of the special beat that will allow them to know the amount of time that they have between boulders rolling on past. So that way they know that they can rush on up to hidden alcoves in order to get to the lever. So like what I might do then is I would say, okay, so there's a treasure that's going to be down this hall. Maybe there's a few other rooms before you get there, but in order to pass through this hallway, these boulders that come at various intervals and roll to crush you, you only know how to beat them if you know the song. And the song gives you the beat, which gives you the timing for when the boulders are going to come, and all the alcoves to hide in are in correlation to the timing. And so you got to pass like maybe 3 or 4 alcoves before you can get to the switch, throw the switch, and then boom, boulders stop falling. So that's kind of what I want you guys to be thinking along the lines of when it comes to creating these puzzle encounters. A reason for why this encounter exists, and the solution to that encounter. And does it make sense? Is it something that people can figure out once you know it? You're like, aha, okay, that makes sense. as opposed to what was being shown to us in Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves, where the paladin is telling them how to get across the bridge, and it's the most ridiculous thing ever. There's no way anyone should be able to remember that other than this crazy guy. A plate of spaghetti will stop that human in their tracks. Thank you, Papyrus. Then it says, I've been to an actual escape room with a group of friends a couple of times. They're so much fun and pretty plex. It was a great teamwork solving all those puzzles in the rooms. It is a ton of fun. It's a ton of fun to go to an escape room. I really do enjoy them. Now then, Common Crash says right here, for starters, I was playing solo using Mythic GM Emulator 2E, a system of tables and rules, called an oracle that enables you to play without a GM. There's a percentage of yes or no odds. With modifiers on the answers, there is a chaos factor that goes up and down based on whether or not the scene went with the player or players were in control of the situation. In Vampire version 5, there is a willpower meter which can be spent to re-roll parts of the dice pool, but willpower is also the mental health tracker for social combats. Now then, thinking about a social encounter. So, because social encounters can also be puzzle encounters. When I was writing the book The Dark Rebellion, there is a kind of puzzle encounter for the main character Jessica. When Jessica comes into the Dark Court, there are multiple political factions, and she is supposed to choose one to align herself with, or at least that's what she believes. The Dark Lord, Sean, I know, very, very creative, inventive, original name right there. The Dark Lord, Sean, doesn't actually care what group she ends up with. He's only doing this to kind of test her, to see what will she choose. And based on those choices, he can read her a little bit better. He might even be able to manipulate her. So, hence the choice of political parties. And so what Jessica does is she walks around the room that court is held in. She walks around the throne room and she observes the different groups. And she can see, so she sees, for instance, the group that is closest to the Dark Lord. They are very clearly the richest, the most powerful, the most popular individuals. There are then those who are suck-ups, who are clear imitators of the powerful party, but they are clearly not as powerful or as smart or as rich or as well connected as the most powerful faction. So therefore, they are just basically imitators. They're wannabes. And so she immediately rejects the wannabes because she's like, I can already tell you guys are a pale imitation of this other group. So there's no reason I want to hang out with you guys because I don't want to hang out with posers. The most powerful group, however, that could be dangerous because I don't know if I have enough power to really be an equal within that group. I could be manipulated, and it might put me even into closer clutches with the Dark Lord, and I don't want to be. I'm already his prisoner here. I want at least some freedom and autonomy. And so she then sees a third group, and this group is very much apart from the others. Their dress, their stature, the way that they hold themselves seems way more intimidating. They're obviously more soldier-like. And she's like, well, now they're very interesting, but do I really want to actually be with any faction in particular? She then notices that there's a bunch of people that are hanging out by the refreshment table. Just a collection of oddballs and has-beens. And she's like, you know what? Screw that. I think the Dark Lord is trying to manipulate me to choosing one of these three groups. I'm going to form my own group, my fourth group. And so she creates her entree club where she gets all of the rejects in the royal courts and brings them together into her own faction, which grants her the autonomy that she wants, but it now puts her in opposition to all the other parties. And now all of them can act against her, and she has no allies but for the cast-offs that she has gathered under her. And so she has to start thinking really smart about how she's going to deal in the Dark Court. And it leads to her getting into some very bad situations. Some really intense situations. Which is actually one of the reasons why when I brought my books to the Renaissance Festival, I had to legally give a disclaimer for the Dark Rebellion. Because it's like, there are scenes of attempted sexual assault in this book. Because that's some of the stuff that happens to her based on the choices of friends and allies that she makes in a social puzzle scene. So that right there is one example. And coming back to, well, the answer needs to make sense once people have all the context clues. That is a moment where you kind of have to go a little bit off of faith. And you're like, Jessica, did you just make a big boo-boo? And it's as the story proceeds and as you find out who all of these other people are, they may be outcasts, but they all have either a special talent or connection or business that she can utilize to begin her rebellion. Hence the Dark Rebellion. Mallet says, wait, give me a moment. I got an idea. Put a puzzle in Jevel's little freedom jail cell that is completely unpredictable until you open your own mind to the idea that you are in a game and abuse its mechanics because you can do anything. That'd be fun. That's a fanfic situation. That's a hard one to replicate in a video game. But kudos to Toby Fox for putting in his best to try and make that happen. And speaking of Toby Fox, let's bring this back on up. Comicraft continues. The scene was sort of a prologue. Before my character became a vampire getting out of college, he had been cornered by a vampire in secret, which depleted his willpower almost fully. He only escaped by causing a scene by calling a professor. The vampire had retreated, but was too intimidating. Actually, a subtle form of mind control to confront face-to-face again. And my character had assumed it was a kidnapper. So he told his best friend. They both decided to prepare just in case the creep tried to attack again. You get a drink of water right here. My character, Bernie, and his best friend decided to go loud, tell everyone, family, friends, and neighbors, the police, and everyone, which for vampires was a big no-no, which made the vampire to panic a bit. Very nice, very nice. There's the cheese puzzle right there. And when we did the latest cruisy run through, I completely destroyed all the cheese. It was such a waste. Such a waste. That's a good encounter you have right there, Concraft. How to deal with a vampire who's coming on to you when you are powerless against them. You flip their social rules and puzzle and norms against them. Honorable mention: the trope of the never-ending non-horror cliffhanger. Sigh. Yep. Man. Cliffhangers. And cliffhangers are not bad in and of themselves, but excuse me. There's when cliffhangers get overused, it'd be really frustrating. What, a new cliffhanger? When will this cliffhanger end? Unless you're watching In Between the Lions, which is an old educational kids show. Cliffhanger, hanging from a cliff. And that's why he's called Cliffhanger. Comicraft, my character was specialized for mental tasks, with a secondary ability for social. His only skill in combat was throwing objects. As is most people's only combat skill, if we're going to be quite honest. Let's see here. say I will also quickly, for funsies, I'm going to read to you guys what ISO gave to us earlier, and I think then we'll start wrapping things up from there, because as you might be able to hear, my voice is beginning to get a little bit weak. Wow, we've been going on for a long time. I hope you guys have been having a good time with this. All right. Okay. So here we go. This is from I started here. I had an idea for a liminal horror story where the puzzle is quite basic. Survive, escape, figure out what the heck is even happening. This involves solving many other smaller puzzles of the design of the entities that rule this liminal dimension, meant specifically to toy with the characters by putting them through perilous situations, and not even allowing them to die once they reach their breaking point. Their goal to survive is less of a goal and more of an inevitability that only feeds into the psychological horror of being trapped in an endless dimension of puzzles and monsters, unable to escape, unable to die, and still aware of every ounce of pain and suffering that they experience. One of the puzzles I'm most proud of is the garden maze. The characters are separated and dropped in an endless hedge maze, kind of like a mix of Maze Runner and the Final Try Wizard Challenge from Harry Potter. In the maze, the characters are pursued by entities called the Garden Keepers, grotesque, mindless creatures created by the master of the liminal space specifically to be horrifying. In the maze, the characters have to find 3 statues, not easy, in an endless maze, and solve a puzzle connected to each of them to get a riddle that leads to the next riddle, all for a small chance of moving on to the next dimension where more puzzles and monsters wait. All the while, they have to avoid the Garden Keepers so that they don't get brutally torn apart without the ability to die. Yeah, I'm just unleashing my sadistic side for this one. We've all been there. We've all been there. Oh, Hannah fell asleep. Well, Hannah, welcome back. Oh, and Mimic, you actually know in between the lions. Fantastic. Let's see here. Madeline says 4 people have to control an automaton, but each person controls a different limb of it and needs to go through things similar to an obstacle course. Ooh, I like that. That's a fun idea right there. So some good communication skills need to be utilized there. Me up at 1 a.m. anyway. Hey, Hannah, don't worry. If you were asleep, you were asleep, and that's okay. We all get tired. I was conking out every now and then yesterday, and I was just I should have just gone to bed earlier, but I did not. I was a fool. Commoncraft continues. So they decide to prepare his house just in case, using his ability to craft plus a bonus granted by the neighborhood being more aware, and another bonus for safekeeping his house from Shargen. He made a huge trap using both a Home Alone style traps and some wires, plus a guard cat lent by a neighbor. While doing their preparation, they caught the attention of another friend of his, a girl that was part of the police and an unknowing pawn of the vampire local hunting conspiracy. She heard about the mess and came to check. All right, so you've got a good long story right there, Commoncraft. This is cool. Okay. So, like I said, we've been here now for almost 4 hours. and without someone else here to take over to speak for me, I do need to give myself a rest. Oh boy. It's been a long night, but everyone, thank you so much for being here. Commoncraft, I do want to hear the rest of your story. If you could please put the rest of it into a comment on this video, and I'll be very happy to read it later. Because this is pretty fun, and it's neat seeing the experience that someone has had playing Vampire the Masquerade. Anyway, so basically, this is a scenario where characters have to traverse a jerry-rigged mansion which is a spoof of legends of the hidden temple where the heroes have to save their friend. That's a fun situation. And says, I was so drowsy from waking up that I typed something stupid. But yeah, I remember when you used to air that show on, when they used to air that show on PBS, watched every morning during breakfast and time before school, and then later on in the evening during dinner. Good times. It was a good show, and it was good times. Awesome. Thank you, Concraft. Now I'll also quickly catch up with what you said right there. So after a member of the police came to check in on what was happening, later that night the vampire attacked and got caught. The trap was just good enough. Oh, fantastic. I'm gonna says, I was showering during the puzzle section. Sorry for the inaction. Hey, that's okay. That's okay. Before I go, let me just say this. I do want to show you guys at some point, like some of the stuff that here, because I'm about to fall into a bad stutter. So get my thoughts back in order. When you know you stutter, you're able to stop it a little bit better. So I've got plans for instance, like future puzzle encounters, but also for a game that I do want to show you guys. It'll take some time. It's not going to happen next week or even in 2 weeks, but it's something to keep an eye out for, because I've got some big plans for things that I want to share with you guys. I'm not going to go into too much detail right now because there's still a lot to figure out, but something that I can tell you guys to keep an eye out for way sooner is that with my county fair coming into town, it is the perfect opportunity to give you guys my theory for what might happen in Deltarune during the trip to the festival. This will be a Deltarune / cruisy theory video I hope to have out before the end of the month, and I will be supplying footage from my own time at the county fair. And I'll tell you guys this, I am a thrill junkie when it comes to rides. I love going on all the rides. The crazier, the better. So I will have stories and footage for you all real soon. I hadn't realized how long my story was. Hey, a great story sometimes ends up going on pretty long, especially when it's a role-playing story. And Mick says, I meant to put in the word they, not you. Darn, autocorrect. Yeah, that happens to me all the time. But all right, guys, so that'll do it for tonight. Thank you so much for being here. And for any of you who haven't yet watched the Gaslight District, please do watch it. Please share it out with other people. Spread the word. And let's just see how people react to it. The more people, the better. It gives us an idea of how this story is going to do. And I will have my own review and analysis up as soon as possible. Now, it says release a mist with a drug like a mushroom in it, and they have to find a way out while absolutely tripping like crazy. That sounds like fun. All right, guys. So all that being said, I will see you guys in the next video. And until then, tschüss.